Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto has all tailed bast sealed in him. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. The sealing had already begun. Namikaze Minato was sealing the Kyuubi, which attacked his village of Konohagakure no Sato, inside his son, Naruto, who was just born 3 minutes ago. In the heavens above, Kami himself was watching the events unfold, already knowing what will happen to the boy in his life. He shall be hated, he shall be scorned, he shall be abandoned, he shall suffer. But Kami expected great things for Naruto in the future, so he decided to give the boy a gift so he may fight his future. With his power only the god of gods could wield, he drew upon the power of the other 8 Biju throughout the elemental nations and funneled them all towards Naruto, sealing all the 9 Biju within one person, for the second time. He did not kill the other Jinchuriki, nor did he strip them of their power of the demons. Kami was not spiteful, nor illogical. He granted the containers the abilities of the demons they once contained, to give them an advantage in this world. For a shinobi, there is no cheating, only an advantage above your enemy. As the 9 Biju all fused together into the entity known as the Jubi, he split the demon's soul in half, sealing the yang half inside Naruto, so he wouldn't be overwhelmed by its pure existence, casting the yang half far to the west, augmenting Naruto's seal to contain the reincarnated Shinju. No one would know of the power the boy would contain, not even the man sealing the Kyuubi, initially, would know that he was a part of something so much bigger. As soon as the boy could, he would be confronted by the demon within him. He saw great things in the future for this Uzumaki Naruto. 8 years later, Naruto was running for his life from a mob that was chasing him. This was the 3rd one this week, and he was getting annoyed by it. He ran into an alley in hopes to lose them, only to find it was a dead end. If he stayed here, he would find that name is rather correct. Turning around to run out where he came in, he stopped, seeing the mob was upon him. He backed away until his back was to the brick wall blocking his only way to freedom. "We got you now, demon. Now we're gonna finish what the Yondaime started. This is for my family you slaughtered, you filthy monster." The villagers yelled these things and more as they fell upon the boy, weapons poised to end his life in petty revenge. Suddenly everything froze, and the world was silent. Naruto was confused at what just happened and was about to voice his question when he was suddenly pulled into his mindscape. Naruto appeared in what seemed to be a sewer, in front of huge bars, a piece of paper taking the place of a keyhole, which was surrounded by heavenly runes that glowed in the dull gray iron of the cage. "Hello?" Naruto asked the entity behind the bars, receiving no answer. Well, it seems my new container has finally decided to grace me with his presence." A deep, demonic voice commented as a huge eye opened in the darkness. It was blood red, and it had a dilated pupil with concentric circles expanding outwards, 3 tomo on each ring spread evenly. An unseen light turned on, and he saw the creature behind the bars. It was a disturbing beast. A gargantuan demon with the eye that took up the head, and a mouth full of jagged teeth, as if rocks were ground into spikes. More protrusions across its back as it hoisted itself on 2 humanoid arms. 10 large tails swaying behind it lazily. The creature had no hind legs. Its body seemed to be made of rock as it eyed the boy with mirth. What are you?" Naruto asked fearfully, having fallen on his ass and started crawling away. "I am the Jubi, the 10 tails." The creature answered, voice filled with amusement, its mouth not moving yet words being conveyed just the same. 10 tails? But there's only 9-tailed beasts." Naruto yelled incredulously, pointing an accusing finger at the demon that said it was the supposed 10 tails. The demon was not amused. "Fool, where do you think the 9-tailed beasts came from? In the time before your villages, when that human female consumed the fruit of my true form and reincarnated with me, this form before you was created. The man you know as the Rikudo Sennin sealed me inside himself, splitting my chakra into the 9 Biju and casting my empty shell into a celestial body that would become your moon." The Jubi yelled. Naruto, too young to properly process the history of shinobi before there were shinobi, merely took a few minutes to swallow this, letting it fly right over his head. "Where are we?" he finally asked. "You are within your mind, specifically the special seal that keeps me inside you. You are not strong enough on your own to keep me at bay, so this seal was specially modified for you." The Jubi answered. Naruto nodded in understanding. It made sense. He was just a newborn when this happened, so how did the Yondaime expect to be able to seal such a strong creature inside him? If the demon's power was cut in half, he could have sealed it away like 8 years ago. Hey, Naruto started. The Kyuubi attacked 8 years ago. How come you're sealed in me? He asked. He got the strangest feeling the demon was smirking with his odd maw. Kami, in his infinite wisdom, decided to cut you a break and gathered all the other Biju around your world and sealed them all inside you, remaking me. But he split my soul and sealed the yang half within you, since your body couldn't handle all of my power at the time. Only the Rikudu Sennin had enough will to hold me back. So, when the Yondaime sealed a Biju inside you, he began the process of sealing the Jubi inside you, and here we are. It answered. Naruto was silent for a while as he digested this information. So Kami decided to seal the Jubi inside him. He wondered why, but knew he couldn't really do anything about it. So why am I here? He asked the Jubi. I've decided to call for you to offer a deal. Kami gave me a sort of key that will activate once I have your consent. It will allow me to unlock my power within your body, granting you what this half of me can. Once I unlock that power, you will acquire my eye, but in both of yours, and it will allow you to perform technique from both the Sharingan and Rinnegan. Also, since you only contain my yang half for now, being my Jinchuriki will grant you enhanced strength, speed, stamina, and regeneration, and access to all 6 forms of chakra. And since I'm the origin of all chakra, you can inject chakra networks and even Kekkei Genkei in other humans. Once you acquire my yin half, you'll receive the rest of the abilities. The Jubi offered. Naruto stared at the Jubi, agape. This sounded too good to be true. Then he realized something. Wait, you said, deal? What do you get out of this? He asked indignantly. The Jubi shrugged its shoulders. Nothing much, but the seal Kami put on you is kind of forcing me to do this, but for self-preservation and the need to not have a weak vessel, I accept the influence and will do these things. Do we have a bargain? It repeated. Naruto thought about it for some time until he looked up at the Jubi determinedly. Yes, he answered. Then this is going to hurt. It said, in a powerful beam shot from its single eye and hit Naruto in the stomach, and his body was racked with the greatest pain he may ever feel in his entire life. Outside world. Naruto's form was currently seizing as his body was surrounded by a cloak of bubbling red chakra. The crowd of civilians and a few Chunin backing off. Had they released the Kyuubi? He yelled out in horrible pain. Some of the members of the mob whose hate wasn't as great as the majority suddenly second-guessing their actions. A demon would not cry out in pain like that. Was this truly just an unfortunate boy, only 8? Suddenly their thoughts were cut short when a foul aura exuded down the alley, suffocating them with its power. As they turned their gazes towards the Kyuubi brat, their hearts stopped. Naruto stood straight, gazing at them with his new eyes. They recognized the dujutsu of the esteemed Sharingan, but it was different. They at least knew that a newly unlocked Sharingan would have 1 tomo. But this had not 1, not 2, not even the maximum 3 they heard about from the veteran Uchihas. No, these eyes had 9 tomo, his pupils dilated and 3 concentric circles expanding from it. Each ring had 3 tomo. It was entirely red. His body was tense, his anger clear in his gaze. He slowly clapped his hand together and whispered lowly. Enten. Megami no Pushu. Blaze release. Goddess push. With a flood of chakra and utilizing a sub-element of the Sharingan portion of his new Kekkei Mora. Black flames formed around him in an orb, exploding outwards, instantly vaporizing all flesh, leaving the blackened skeletons of Naruto's attackers frozen in poses of shock, their forms outlined along the walls. He stood unfazed by the lives he had just taken, at least for the split second when he unleashed his technique. When the smell of burnt flesh and death reached his nose, he fell to his knees and vomited off to the side. He panted heavily as he was on all fours, suddenly tired from the events that transpired and brought him to these circumstances. Giving in, he passed out to the side, thankfully not falling into his own puddle of puke. This was the scene the Sandaime found himself at. Many blackened skeletons along scorched walls and an unconscious Naruto next to a puddle of puke. He sighed and ordered his Anbu to dispose of the remains as he personally walked up and picked Naruto up in his arms. Oh, Naruto-kun, I wish I could have been here sooner. I promised to take you away from here, at least for a few months, once you wake up. He promised quietly as he brought Naruto to the hospital, specifically to the only doctors and nurses there that didn't hate his guts. 3 days later, Naruto groaned as he slowly awoke. His eyes opening, their color now his normal cerulean. He seemed to be able to turn off his dujutsu, he mused. Staring upwards, he found himself seeing a blank white ceiling. Turning to either side, he found equally blank walls and medical equipment. Hospitals. I hate hospitals. Even if Retsuka-san is nice. He thought to himself, thinking of the nice middle-aged woman who was his personal doctor. Sitting up, he found the Sandame sitting in a chair by his bedside, looking at him expectantly with a slightly guilty look. Naruto-kun, I'm sorry I couldn't have stopped those foolish people from attacking you. The council held me back in another meeting. He apologized. It's okay, Ojii-san. I don't blame you. They didn't get to hurt me. Naruto waved him off. Naruto-kun, would you like to join me on a trip to Suna? Hiruzen asked, already knowing the answer. Naruto thought it over. He would take any opportunity to get out of this damnable village. Sure, when do we go? He asked. In about 5 hours. Sarutobi answered. Now, when I found you, there were only black skeletons remaining. Can you explain those? He asked. Itachi ni-san helped me again. He said something and black fire suddenly shot from his eye and killed the villagers. He helped me cope with my first deaths then left so he wouldn't be questioned. Please don't punish him, Ojii-san. Naruto begged, lied. It wouldn't be the first time Itachi would have helped him. The teenager was indeed like a brother to him. Hiruzen merely chuckled. Don't worry, Naruto-kun, I won't punish him. He did the right thing, protecting you from those people. Are you okay? He asked, worried for Naruto's health. I'm fine, Ojii-san. Naruto answered. That's good to know. I'll sign you out so you can go home and pack for the trip. He waved goodbye and left the room. Gaki, I got some ideas for when we get to Suna. Have you heard of the puppet technique some of their shinobi used? Jubi suddenly popped in his head and questioned. Naruto jumped a bit at the sudden voice in his head. Oh, hey Jubi. Yeah, I've seen some puppets in the market district. You talking about those? Naruto asked. One and the same. I have some ideas for the art. Jubi answered. Okay? Naruto wasn't sure what the demon meant but went along with it and left once the nurse said he could go home. 3 days later, Naruto had left 3 days ago when Ojii-san said, 6 hours after he awoke, around noon. It took those 3 days for them to arrive in Suna, due to Naruto not having chakra training and thus he couldn't augment his speed with the energy, slowing them down. He apologized to the Sandame for this, but was waved off, told he was 8 and wasn't enrolled at the Shinobi Academy so he shouldn't be expected to be able to do that. Naruto was surprisingly quiet the rest of the journey. He had spent the trip contemplating why the Jubi mentioned the puppet art from Suna. Thinking of the Jubi, he remembered that it was made of 9 other creatures with formidable power. Hey Jubi, if you're made of the 9 other Biju, does that mean you have their powers? He asked inside his mind. Took you long enough to realize that. Yes, I do have all their powers. I have the sand control of the Ichibi, I can control fire, both normal and blue, from the Nibi. I can control water and conjure coral like the Sanbi, lava like the Yanbi, steam like the Gobi, acid like the Rokubi, dust like the Nanabi, ink of the Hachibi, and raw chakra manipulation of the Kyubi. Once you learn to use my power, you will as well. And because of your dujutsu, you will control all the primary and sub-elements. The Jubi explained. Naruto raised a brow. Sub-elements? He asked. He had the distinct feeling the Jubi was slapping himself in the face. Kami, you don't know a lot. As my Jinchuriki, even if you only contain half of my power, you gain access to the 6 forms of chakra: fire, water, earth, wind, lightning, and yin-yang. You can combine these elements in a variety of ways, creating sub-elements, like ice, lava, wood, boil, steel, scorch, etc. You there, Gaki? He explained then questioned when Naruto went silent and still in the outside world, worrying Sarutobi. Naruto-kun, you okay? Hiruzen asked. Yahoo! Naruto yelled as he jumped into the air. Again he had the feeling the Jubi was slapping himself. Sarutobi was surprised by Naruto's sudden outburst. Naruto-kun, are you okay? He asked again, this time worried for Naruto's possible mental health. Naruto suddenly realized the spectacle he made of himself and had the decency to look sheepish as he came back to the ground. Hey, nothing, Ojii-san. He answered. Sarutobi was confused but merely shrugged it off, thinking it was another quirk of the boy who he thought he didn't know enough because of his duties as Sandaime. Very well, let's go, he said and continued their journey, Naruto falling into step. You're an idiot, Jubi commented in his head. Not my fault. That sounds awesome. So when do we start? Naruto inquired. Whatever. We'll start once you return to Konoha. The demon answers back. Okay. And what was that thing you mentioned about injecting other people with other Kekkei Genkai? Naruto asked, remembering that tidbit. Who knows? Maybe you'll run into some people who you believe deserve these powers. From my memories as Kyuubi, there were some shinobi that excelled at using weapons. Maybe if you run into one of them, you might give them the steel release. They sure would appreciate it. The demon explained. Naruto nodded, seeing his logic. He remembered seeing a Higurashi girl around the village. She was pretty and kicked gratuitous amounts of butt with her weapons. Maybe, if he got to know her, he might give her steel release. A few hours later, they arrived in Suna, after some questioning due to the unknown child the Hokage brought with him. When Hiruzen went to his meeting with the case cage, Naruto wandered around the village, until he came upon a lone red-headed child with a teddy bear, his black-rimmed teal eyes cast downwards, the kanji for love over his left eye, sitting by himself in a swing set. Sand swirling at his feet, no breeze coaxing the grains to life. Hello? Naruto greeted, noticing the boy wincing at the new voice. He could sense some latent yokai emanating from within the boy's chakra coils. Are you okay? He asked. You should go. The boy whispered lowly. Why? Naruto asked. Was the boy dangerous? Nervous? Everyone around me dies. The boy answered, causing Naruto to frown. He himself frowned, the grimace making him think someone who apparently didn't know anything about him would leave. He was surprised when determination exploded in the strange child's eyes. So what? People have wanted me dead and I'm still here, Naruto said. The boy was confused. Why was this person so enthusiastic about people who wanted to kill him? Why? The boy asked. Naruto flinched. This was still a sore subject with him. I can't talk about it. But no, I won't run away from you. You seem like you need a friend, Naruto offered. The red-headed child was puzzled at this blonde boy. Friend? He didn't understand the word. Everyone in the village, even his own father, was afraid of him. What's a friend? He asked. Naruto had to keep himself from face-faulting. This kid didn't know what a friend was. He felt pity for the kid. Judging from his demeanor and his question, he wasn't one for socializing. A friend is someone who cares about you and helps you feel better when you're done and makes you laugh. A friend is someone precious to you, Naruto answered. The child was silent for a while. So, you're my friend? He asked. Naruto thought it over. If you want to be friends, I won't be in the village for more than 3 months. But I'm sure we can be friends during that time, Naruto assured. I would like that, the red-headed child finally said. Cool, I'm Uzumaki Naruto. What's your name? Naruto asked, sitting on the swing next to him. Gaara, the now revealed Gaara answered, a small smile on his face. Nice to meet you, Gaara, Naruto said with his trademark grin. Before he could begin a possible conversation with his new friend, the kids playing away from Gaara yelled out. Hey, you talking to the freak? Get out of here, one of them yelled as they ran at Naruto. Turning around to face the sneering kid and his group, he growled, baring his teeth and started chasing them, the grouping running from the taller child. As he continued running, he accidentally stepped on a weak piece of wood and fell through the ground, into some sort of secret room. Naruto yelped as he fell and hit the ground on his back. He writhed a bit as the pain numbed and slowly sat up, rubbing his head as some pieces of debris fell down on him. Where am I? He asked seemingly no one. You're where I want you to be. This is the perfect place for you to start with the puppetry art. Jubi answered. What do you mean? Naruto asked out loud, seeing as no one was around to think he was talking to himself, and thus, insane. Looking around, he realized what his tenant was talking about. All around him were scrolls in the shelves and puppet body parts and weapons strewn across the walls, jars of poisons on some tables here and there. What the heck is this place? He asked the Jubi. There's a desk nearby. Check if there's some kind of journal in it. The demon answered, ordered. Naruto complied and walked towards the weathered desk near him. taking out a faded black journal after searching through the drawers. Turning to the latest page, he found a memento from someone. To whomever it may concern. I am Akasuna no Sasori, the puppet master of Sanagakure no Sato. I leave this journal and my supplies to my lineage, some misguided fool who may happen upon this place. I leave to you the scrolls for the chakra thread technique, chakra control exercises to finesse it, and schematics for making your own puppets, including the blueprints for my technique of human puppets, should you venture into what is surely illegal in my old home. Don't disappoint me. Someday we may meet, and I might make you another piece of my art. The letter was stamped with a red scorpion. The rest of the journal was empty. Who the hell is this stuck-up bastard leaving this letter? Naruto asked indignantly. From my memories as Shukaku, this stuck-up bastard is Akasuna no Sasori, the greatest puppet master from Suna. He had mastery over 300 puppets and could lay siege upon an entire nation with his weapons. Jubi started, relishing at Naruto's paling face. I agree, he seems a bit arrogant in his parting words, but with my power behind you, you will surely surpass him and, should we run into him one day, he will be a part of our collection. The demon finished. Why do you want me to start in puppetry? That's oddly specific and weird. Naruto voiced the question buzzing in his head. I plan to have you master every art you humans have created, and puppetry is a more obscure art that will create stepping stones to aid you as you learn other arts. Puppet masters have above-average chakra control, something you desperately need because of me and your own shoddy control. Hey, and once you master those chakra control exercises, they will have also helped you with control for your dujutsu techniques. And starting away from home will be easier, so once we start there, we can start from within Konoha. It's mostly for convenience. It finished. Naruto nodded, seeing the logic behind this strange choice. Okay, so what were those ideas you mentioned before? He asked. You will know once we actually begin making puppets. Now, start on that chakra thread exercise. The demon within ordered. Slightly put off by his bossing him around, Naruto retrieved said scroll and began reading on the exercise. Upon finishing the explanation, he concentrated on his chakra coils and channeled the energy to his fingertips and willed the strings to form, resulting in nothing. He sighed and decided on starting with chakra ropes instead, willing the thick cords of energy to form from his palms instead of his fingertips, planning to exercise them to slowly split towards his fingertips, then start weaning his chakra until they are the necessary strings. 5 hours later, Naruto had finally managed to form chakra threads from his modified exercise, but they wavered now and then, a fact he will remedy with more training. He now actually started on connecting the strings to objects, causing small puppet parts and empty jars to float around. After about 10 minutes of playing around with stuff, his strings had stabilized. He then began on the other chakra control exercises listed in the scroll, such as surface walking. It did not go well. The first time he tried to walk up a wall, he fell on his head, eliciting a mocking laughter from his tenant. He tried to ignore the guffawing inside his mind and began the exercise again, making it at least 5 steps up before he jumped off, instead of falling. He spent the good part of another 3 hours on this exercise, finishing on an acceptable level, according to the Jubi. Returning to the scroll, he found the instructions for a puppet Sasori left for him to start on, Karasu. Finding the bedraggled puppet, its 3 eyes lazily looking down, its 6 arms hanging limp from its sockets, and its mop of shaggy brown hair covered in dust from being left there. After he managed to clean the poor thing, he began on using his chakra strings on it, using all 10 fingers to start. The construct jerked haphazardly with his hand gestures. After about 10 minutes of learning how moving what finger moves what part of the puppet, Naruto began weaning the necessary strings to control Karasu, exercising his control to his normal level as he lessened the used digits. After another 2 hours, he managed to be able to control the entire puppet with a single finger, a fact that he found extremely exciting. Jubi even commented on how fast he progressed. He then began reading up on seals for puppets, both storage seals to hold the constructs and seals on the puppets for some techniques. Surprisingly, he was extremely well versed in learning Fuinjutsu. After only half an hour, he learned how to create storage seals and how to activate the seals throughout the puppet for a number of things. Upon Jubi's request, he began sealing everything in the room in some storage scrolls that he then hid on his person. He left the journal Sasori left unsealed, in his left back pocket, and drew a seal on his arm that now housed Karasu. All of this took another 20 minutes. Channeling chakra to his legs, he jumped through the hole that brought him here, onto the street above, surprising some late-night wanderers when he appeared out of nowhere. Naruto. He heard a voice yell and his Oji-san appeared in front of him, looking extremely worried. Sarutobi frowned when he finally found Naruto. The blown was scuffed up a bit, his clothes dirty and dusty, his shorts slightly torn. "Naruto, where have you been? I've been looking for you for nearly 10 hours. He yelled, worried sick about the blonde. Naruto had the gall to look sheepish, rubbing the back of his head. "Sorry, Oji-san. I was chasing some kids that were making fun of my new friend and fell down some hole. I just woke up." He lied partially. Sarutobi gave a small smile when he heard Naruto made a new friend and sighed in relief that he wasn't hurt. "Thank Kami. You scared me. Come on, it's late. We'll be living in a hotel near the Cage Tower for the next 4 months," he said, leading Naruto to their temporary abode. Naruto nodded and followed, smiling as he palmed the pocket that held Sasori's journal. The next day, Naruto was playing with Gaara, as Sarutobi said he was going to another meeting with the Cage and his council, and the red-headed child introduced him to his siblings, Kankuro and Tamari. Kankuro was a nice kid, if mysteriously wary around Gaara. He had shaggy brown hair, which reminded him of Karasu, and dark hazel eyes. Apparently he was a near-spitting image of his father, the Cage. He wore a dark beige t-shirt and black shorts. He expressed interest in puppetry, a fact that Naruto promised to get to later. Tamari was the elder sister. She had dirty blonde hair that was tied back in 4 shaggy ponytails. She wore a light lavender dress that stopped at her knees. She was nice enough, but she seemed like a tomboy, somewhat more brash than Kankuro at times. But he enjoyed playing with the Suna siblings. He was glad to have made more friends. After about 5 hours of playing with them, he said his goodbyes when Hiruzen arrived from his meeting and took Naruto home. Naruto talked about his day of playing with his new friends, a fact that brought a smile to Sarutobi's face as Naruto managed to have some semblance of a childhood, even if it wasn't in his real home. When he brought Naruto home, he left again, saying he was going to get them some dinner. Naruto nodded and promptly made his room into his workshop, unsealing all the supplies and Karasu. Reading the scroll about facts of puppetry, Naruto read that the wood used for puppets was a special chakra-conducting wood, harvested from specially grown, chakra trees. When he read that Suna did not naturally have these trees, and had to import the supplies, he frowned. How was he supposed to make his own puppets if he didn't have the supplies? "Use Mokuton," Jubi offered. "Huh?" Naruto asked mentally, in case Oji-san came early or someone overheard him through the window. "Use wood release to grow the trees you need," Jubi repeated. "How? I don't know any wood release techniques," Naruto reminded. "I at least know some starter techniques for each element and sub-element. I'll teach you a major technique for growing the trees once we're back in Konoha, too noticeable in this desert town. For now, I'll teach you how to mold wood you already have on hand to change the parts you already have," Jubi offered. "Cool," Naruto said out loud. "So we going to start on those ideas you mentioned?" he asked. "Indeed we are. Now, what I want you to do is..." Jubi started, as he explained his first idea. 4 months later, Naruto stood at the gate to Suna, next to Hiruzen, as they were seen off by the shinobi of the village, the Cage, and the Suna siblings. Gaara had actually hugged Naruto goodbye, the red-headed boy opening up during the course of their stay. Kankuro shook hands with Naruto, finally relaxed around him. Tamari walked up, hugged Naruto, and kissed him on the cheek, eliciting a deep blush on his face and a giggle from Tamari. She had opened up to the boy and over the course, she was smitten with the innocent boy and his carefree attitude. She wished they didn't have to go, but understood that he had to leave with the Hokage. Once everyone said their goodbyes, Naruto and Hiruzen began their journey home, Naruto rubbing his hands secretly over a new seal on his arm. It had the kanji for Ichibi. Naruto had returned to Konohagakure after his 4-month stay in Suna, and he brought home quite the repertoire. Moderate mastery at puppet techniques, at the age of 8, and his own puppet, as well as a few days of training in his Ichibi powers. Given how it made sense, he managed to inject a chakra system into the puppet of the One Tail, with a special modified magnet released to suit the sand demon. It worked like the normal Kekkei Genkei, but the puppet could manipulate sand, not just metal, like Gaara could. Speaking of the former Ichibi container, Naruto felt he was obligated to explain to the redhead that he needn't worry about mental trauma, insomnia, or any other problems he might face had he thought he still contained the crazed demon. When Naruto told him he no longer held the Ichibi, Gaara, and by proxy Temari and Kankuro, thought he was batshit nuts, and suspicious on how he became privy to such knowledge. When he explained he held the Jubi, the 10-tailed beast, and that at his birth and sealing, all other Biju were removed and sealed within him, all three children were extremely skeptical to believe him. To prove it to them, Naruto showcased his sand release to Gaara, showing he had the same power as the Red Head, but it was much more potent, and even showed them the seal on his stomach that held the demon within him, a fact that made him blush if only because Temari was there. With some more convincing, as well as a rather impromptu nap time for Gaara courtesy of Naruto knocking him out, showing he didn't go into a berserk rage in his sleep, they grew to believe him, and he felt a real connection to them since he told them his biggest secret. He trained with Gaara in his control over the sand release, and helped Kankuro when he began his training in puppetry. He enjoyed the face the brunette made when he showed him his Ichibi puppet. All three children were terrified when they first saw it, thinking he had somehow unleashed the demon in the world, only to find it was a puppet, wood and mechanisms, no flesh, blood, or evil. He immediately pledged to begin in his yokai training, though he didn't know how he would go about doing such a thing without alerting half of Konoha in the first second. Until he thought of that, he began on his second puppet and trained more in his Ichibi powers, finding he now had a strong Futon affinity. Probably due to the modicum of wind release techniques the demon was known for. He also trained in the sand release both as himself and with his puppet. He found he could make weapons out of the numerous grains, from the normal shield that was almost free of his will, to a wicked halberd modeled after the Ichibi's hand. He also began in his training for the first sub-element the Jubi mentioned, wood release. The possibility of ready lumber for his puppets was too tempting to put off, and he began in training of the Kekkei Genkei of the Shodan. He could already form a small sprout in the palm of his hand due to the chakra control he attained through training for puppetry. He concentrated his chakra in the sapling, watching it grow ever so slightly over the span of minutes. In the beginning, it was rather thin and spindly, about 3 leaves on it as a whole. After about 3 hours of concentrating, he now held a healthy and hardy bonsai tree in the palm of his hands. He decided to pot the small plant and tend to it in his apartment. He soon began creating the tiny tree in each hand. It, of course, took twice as long, but the results were there. He then began growing trees outside of his body, since he planned to grow the special tree that would provide him with the chakra-conductive wood necessary for puppets. At first, all he could muster was the tiny bonsai. Sweat dropping at the tiny tree, he continued his concentration, watching as the small foliage grew into the size of a moderate shrub within an hour. Even though he spent only 10 hours on training, he was exhausted, physically and spiritually. He fell on his ass next to the shrub of his work, eyeing it with a smile that soon grew into a frown as he thought things over. "I'm not making enough progress," he muttered. "I have an idea," Jubi commented. "Oh, do you?" Naruto deadpanned, bitter that his supposed sensei decided to grace him with his presence. "Cage Bunshin," it replied. "The heck is that?" Naruto asked out loud, seeing as nobody was around to eavesdrop on him. "A technique that creates solid clones of you that, upon dispelling, return their information to you. With it, you can train a month in an hour, or a year in a day." It answered. "How do you know about that technique? You're a conglomeration of demons that were hidden within humans who, from what I guess, didn't have this knowledge." Naruto commented. "The Kyuubi aspect of me already knew of the technique due to its previous hosts, a pair of Uzumaki women. They said that, due to the usual stamina and chakra reserves of their clan, not even the greatest of them could perform the Bunshin, so they turned to the Cage Bunshin." It explained. Naruto nodded in understanding, already knowing the previous host of Kyuubi was his mother, Jubi, breaching the subject one depressing day in Suna when Naruto spotted a young boy playing with his parents. Jubi suddenly mentioned he knew about Naruto's parentage, and at threat of the child yammering his ear off, if Jubi even had ears, he told Naruto. His father was the Yondaime, the man that was to seal the Kyuubi within him, and his mother, Uzumaki Kushina, also known as the red-hot habanero of Uzu no Kuni. Jubi commented that merely due to his parentage, Naruto was destined for greatness. Remembering the list of Kekkei Genkei holding the 10-tailed demon granted him, Naruto asked if his father held swift release, knowing he was famous for his immense speed, and his Hiraishin no Jutsu, a technique that made him fast as light. He was surprised when the Jubi answered negatively, saying it was all talent and sealing for Minato. Hearing his mother was no slouch in Fuinjutsu just reignited Naruto's fire to learn the art, knowing it would benefit him in his puppetry and shinobi career all around. Well, let's get started on it, Naruto said excitedly. 1 hour later, Naruto stood before 20 clones of himself, solid clones. He smirked at them and performed the cross seal, summoning a crowd of clones, bringing up the numbers to 300. Okay, 100 of you work on wood release, 100 of you work on sand release by yourselves, and 100 of you work on using sand release through your own copies of Ichibi. He ordered. Hi, they all yelled, scrambling to their groups and begun training. What are you gonna do, boss? One clone asked the original. I've gotta go make a new friend. Naruto answered. Walking out of the training field he found abandoned near the forest of death, knowing it would never be found, except by maybe that crazy snake lady, but he knew she wouldn't bother him. He let his mind wander to their first meeting. Flashback. Naruto was training after he returned to getting used to Shukaku, his Ichibi puppet he gave the name of the original demon, information courtesy of the Jubi. When Naruto asked, he was puzzled to find the Jubi didn't have a name of his own and, even with Naruto's persistence, he turned down being given a name. He didn't give his reasons, but Naruto didn't press on the issue. Naruto stood back, marveling at his puppet he worked hard on back in Suna. It was a hulking figure, half a foot taller than Naruto was, though that's not saying much, since Naruto was short for his age. The wooden construct of the Tanuki demon was a visual copy of its physical body. A hunch in its stance, incredibly large stomach sitting on short hind legs and long, hulking arms ending in claws. Its tail even matched how the raccoon dog's own looked, individually scaled, however odd that is. Its large head and crooked grin sat on its shoulders, large sockets for the beady eyes Naruto installed, adding to its authenticity. He even decided to paint the blue veins that adorned the Ichibi's body in its existence on his puppet. However, the actual eyes were different than the Ichibi's usually were. Thanks to a tidbit of information Jubi let slip, Naruto managed to create and install a pair of eyes with a combination of injecting a Kekkei Genkei and what rudimentary yin-yang release he could manage, since it could create anything he imagined. The eyes were the same as his Jubigan, a moniker he coined for his special dujutsu, in thanks to his demon tenant, since he thought Rinne Sharinga sounded stupid. He found, thanks to the Rinnegan half of the hybrid dujutsu, Naruto could see through any extra copies of the eyes wherever he put them. While Jubi mentioned that the Rinnegan allowed one to use human corpses, reanimated with chakra receptors, he decided to use the 9 Biju puppets, bringing the second coming of the Rikudu Sennin. He would be the Judo Sennin. Now for inner details. This is where Naruto was most proud of his work. Its large arms were made of many segments, more so than a normal puppet would. Chain mail encasing the joints just underneath the wooden limbs, keeping it stable for its claw swipes. Speaking of the limbs, the large belly was made entirely of metal sheets that would expand and contract with held oxygen, which the puppet could slam on its stomach to copy the mannerisms of the Ichibi's Renkuden. On the back of the Ichibi, knowing he couldn't have it actually inhale, he created a series of grates that could flip open and, due to some seals he managed to create with the Jubi's guidance, used chakra to suck in oxygen for the demon-accurate Fuuten technique. The held oxygen could also be funneled to the mouth, where he installed a gas tube that, with another seal he made, could create slightly weaker Renkuden, without having to wait for its movements of the arms or if the arms were damaged in battle. Thanks to the chakra system he installed, it allowed the puppet to perform the same ability Gaara showcased when he first met the redhead, sand release. Tapping into the system, he could perform the modified magnet release from the former Ichibi container's ancestry through the puppet. Within the large tail of the puppet, under every scale was a containment seal that held containers of senbon, which he could activate with a flick of his wrist, and the tail. When the senbon were used, he could do the same thing with the actual scales, the tips of each one adorned with blades. the bottom tips having small thrusters with seals in them, creating makeshift rockets of the blades. And of course, the puppet was riddled with hidden compartments of weapons and poisons known for every puppet. Hidden blades in the arms. Poison gas spewing tubes hidden in the small chest and mouth. Naruto wore a shit-eating grin as he eyed his piece of work, only to be interrupted by an impressed whistle. "Nice work, Gaki. You make that yourself?" he heard a feminine voice say. Snapping around with the speed of a paranoid child chased all his life, Naruto came face to face with a beautiful woman. Her purple hair tied up in a pineapple shape, her beige coat open, showing her fishnet-clad breasts as her tan skirt stopped at mid-thigh, shin guards leading to sandals. Her hazel eyes stared at him with mirth at the blush creeping up on his face. "Like what you see, Gaki," she teased him. She was Chunin Mitarashi Anko. Naruto stuttered, not knowing what to say as he was found out. He was sure she had been watching him as he trained in his sand release and with his dujutsu, which he suddenly realized he still had active. His face paled, feeling the tingle of chakra behind his eyes. "Freaky eyes, Gaki," Anko commented. She smirked, which soon fell, when she noticed he seemed to be petrified in fear. Perhaps she was seeing stuff he didn't want someone to see? She did a mental checklist of the things she noticed of the child. Puppet of the one-tailed demon? Check is something he'd want to hide. Surreal control over sand, through his body and the puppet? Check. Weird dujutsu that looks like a combination of the Sharingan and the dujutsu of the Rikudo Sennin of myths? Check. Yep, she fucked him up. "Look, Gaki, I won't tell anyone about this stuff." She placated him. She smirked when his shoulders slackened. "If," she added, seeing them shoot back up tension, "you explain everything to me." She finished, enjoying the mortified look on his face. "Shit, what do I do? What do I do?" Naruto yelled in his head to Jubi. "Just tell her. I get the feeling she will keep these things a secret if you just tell her." Jubi answered. Gulping silently but trusting the Jubi, Naruto spun his tale of the truth behind his status. She was skeptical at first when he said he didn't contain the Kyuubi, but the Jubi from the legend of the Rikudo Sennin. When he further explained holding the 10-tailed demon gave him a dujutsu and possibility for every sub-element, she was hard-pressed to fault him. She saw how he was manipulating the sand, and when he repaired the wooden carapace of that smaller puppet by just touching it and the wood closed itself like how his yokai healed him. He then explained how the Sandaime took him on a trip to Suna, where he made friends with the former Ichibi container and discovered the legacy of Akasuna no Sasori, where he began in his puppetry training, which she consented to. The proof was right behind him. She thought over the facts, and found they added up, excluding the whole Jubi thing, though she didn't know how he could prove that without showing her some yukai, and this kid didn't want to grab anyone else's attention when he didn't even want hers. She swore on her word that she would keep his secrets, well, secret, if he agreed to let her train him. At his questioning look, she explained how a well-rounded shinobi shouldn't concentrate on just ninjutsu, when taijutsu is just as important, especially for a puppet user. He agreed to this, growing uneasy at her own shit-eating grin, and began his training with her. He had never been so terrified in his entire life than he was when he was training with the insane Chunin. Flashback end. He shuddered at the thought of his training and went on his way, heading towards the Higurashi weapon shop. He went inside, looking around until he found his target. Looking to the counter, he found her. Higurashi Tenten. She was 10 years old and already in the academy. She already specialized in using weapons, garnering the nickname, Weapon Mistress. He chuckled at the name, alerting her to his presence. "Welcome to Higurashi's Weapons, how may I help you?" she said rather blandly, not even looking up at him as she skimmed through a weapon catalog in a daze. "You're Tenten, right?" Naruto asked, suddenly appearing at the counter, scaring Tenten a bit at his speed. "Why yeah, why? How do you know my name? I've never met you before," she said. "I've heard of the Weapon Mistress of Konoha." Naruto answered with his foxy grin. Tenten blushed at his smile. "I'm no one special," she amended. "You might be wrong," Naruto said. "I can give you a gift," he added. Tenten eyed his suspiciously. "I'm not into younger men," she pointed out. Seeing an opportunity to get a chuckle out of her, Naruto merely kept smiling. "Ah, but I'm so cute and lovable," he replied, holding his arms out as if to give her a hug. His face tinted pink ever so slightly when she giggled. It sounded adorable. "So what's this gift?" she asked. "Have you heard of Steel Release?" Naruto asked, throwing Tenten for a loop at the seemingly random question. Here and there. I wouldn't mind having such a Kekkei Genkei, it sure would be a boon for my fighting style. Why do you ask? Are you just giving out Kekkei Genkei? She asked suspiciously. In a way, Naruto replied, causing Tenten's eyes to widen, then immediately narrow. Like I'm supposed to believe you can give me a Kekkei Genkei? Even if you could, what kind of sick payment would you want? She snapped at him. Naruto was confused at her curt reply, only for Jubi to explain what she was thinking to him. His face reddened and he waved his hands at her. Whoa 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 whoa, nothing like that. I'm 8, damn it, I just wanna be friends. He yelled. She hissed at him to be quiet, bopping him on the head lightly, creating a small bump on his head. Be quiet, you want my dad to hear you? She chastised. Sorry, but I'm serious, I can give you steel release. It's my own Kekkei Genkei that I can give other people Kekkei Genkei. He half lied. While that was a part of his gift from the Jubi, it wasn't the main thing it could do. Tenten's eyes widened. I've never heard of a Kekkei Genkei like that. What's it called? She asked. I haven't thought of a name for it. He lied again. It wouldn't do to tell her the suspicious name of his dujutsu. Anyway, do you want steel release or not? He repeated. Tenten thought over the offer. Here was some random kid she had never met before offering her a rare Kekkei Genkei just to be her friend. Seems legit. Not. Why me? And what are you really after? She asked him. Naruto was silent. Why her? And why was she still insinuating he wanted that? He was 8, damn it, he's too young for that. I don't really know why you. I've seen you around the village and heard you were good with weapons. I don't have any friends, so I was hoping if I did this for you, you'd be my friend. He said a little depressingly. But if you don't want to be my friend, I'll still give it to you and get out of your life. He added. Tenten frowned at his tone of voice. How can someone so nice and cute, she tried to deny, not have friends? She agreed with herself but needed one last push. Can you use steel release yourself? She asked. Naruto nodded. But I haven't started training in it yet. But if you act now, I'll throw in magnet release. He said, making his voice sound like a cheesy salesman. Tenten giggled again at his impersonation. Deal. And I expect you'll invite me to help train with you in them, too? She asked, walking around the counter to stand next to him. Naruto nodded again, thankful he made a new friend. As he collected the special gray chakra of the Jubi in his hand, shocking Tenten at the visible chakra, let alone the color, Jubi intervened. Wait, I suggest doing this at night. The transference will knock her out for a few hours. It warned. Hearing this, Naruto dispersed the chakra, confusing Tenten. What's wrong? I'm ready, she said. I just realized it might knock you out for a few hours, so is there some time we can do it at night? He asked, rubbing the back of his head nervously. Eyeing him suspiciously, Tenten soon consented to the fact. Injecting foreign chakra within her could indeed be exhausting. Sure, come to my room tonight around 10 and we can do the transference. My family lives in the building above the shop. Meet me at the window overlooking the alley. She offered. Naruto nodded and waved goodbye. Oh, by the way, my name's Uzumaki Naruto. He added, chuckling nervously that he just introduced himself. Tenten giggled. Nice to meet you, Naruto. She smiled, waving back as she went back to her post behind the counter and returned to her catalog. She suddenly froze as she turned a page. I just invited a boy to my room, at night, without my parents knowing. She realized in her head. Her face turned a new shade of red as she tried to drown any sort of thoughts by reading the catalog. Naruto was walking back to his training ground, smiling at the new friend. Suddenly he stopped mid-step. A girl just invited me to her room, at night, without her parents knowing. He realized in his head. His own face turned a shade of red eerily similar to Tenten's as he hurried his steps to his clones. The chuckling demon in his head wasn't helping, either. Looks like someone got some tail. A familiar voice said as he entered his training field. Looking to the voice, he found the provocative Anko eating her dango. Shush, shut up, he stammered, trying to fight his blush. Well, Gaki, let's do a small spar to see where you stand. Throw everything you got at me, she ordered, flicking her dango stick at him to instigate the fight, only to find it deflected by Shukaku taking its place at his side, Naruto unsealing Karasu alongside it, along with a copy of the hand-me-down of the puppet he made. He had the blueprints for Kuroari and Sanshuo but didn't have the time or resources to build them yet, Karasu using the least of the three, so even if he chose not to make a second Karasu, he couldn't even make one Kuroari, and Sanshuo? Forget it, it used the most. Just before the stick was blocked, Naruto dispersed his Bunshin, thankfully 10 every 5 seconds. Over the course of their spar, the clones were slowly shrinking in number, granting Naruto their collective knowledge of any wood or sand release they practiced, also quite a boon of chakra control from their antics. Anyway, he started the spar using sand release through Shukaku, causing it tendril to lash out at the Chunin woman, which she dodged. Using a surprise he created for Shukaku, it brandished its left arm, the surface distorting until a majority of it was sand, shuriken shooting out in rapid pace. Suna shuriken, Naruto yelled. He decided to make sand armor on Shukaku that, thanks to Jubi's chakra, he made look like the puppet so no one could tell the difference, giving his puppet some always appreciated armor. Anko dodged the shuriken again, this time retaliating with a pair of kunai with explosive notes, set aflame already. Naruto retaliated with sand capturing the weapons, creating a sphere to buffer the explosion. Instead of the sand either expanding from holding in the explosion, or dispersing with the force being too great, nothing happened. Anko scowled, and Naruto smirked. Unknown to the Chunin, Naruto tried a crack at another of his Kekkei Genkei the Jubi granted him, explosion release. He used it to negate two explosive notes. While he couldn't use it offensively, yet, he could do that, and it saved him this time. Shukaku's tail flowered open and it swiped the appendage at Anko, small clouds of smoke appearing under each scale as a wall of senbon rocketed towards her. Cursing, Anko performed a kawarimi, thankfully dodging what was sure to be a painful experience. Seneashu, she yelled, thrusting both hands forward as a quartet of snakes slithered out each sleeve towards the child puppeteer. They were impeded by two black blurs and later dispersed. Looking to the culprits, Anko found the pair of Karasu brandishing hidden blades on their wrists. Apparently Naruto had them stop the snakes from reaching Naruto. Said blonde brought his hands together in a cross seal, Anko's eyes widening. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto yelled, summoning 20 clones, immediately sending them to occupy her time as he lays back. Mokuton, Kazuchi, about 5 clones yelled, clapping their hands together, then on the ground, several pieces of wood shooting out towards the Chunin, threatening to pierce her. Anko was momentarily shocked at the legacy of the Shoden but brushed it off and dodged, though not without a few cuts in her outfit. She momentarily smirked at the 5 clones that launched the attack dispersed, already drained of their chakra. She engaged the remaining 15 in taijutsu, soundly defeating them as they tried to bring her down with clumsy brawler style. The kid apparently didn't have a taijutsu style of his own to train in. She should rectify that, painfully. This was her favorite jacket. True, she had about another 10 at home, but number 7 was her favorite, damn it. She brandished her pair of elongated kunai and rushed at Naruto, dodging the Karasu duo and weaving out of Shukaku's haphazard swipes of its large claws and tail. She lunged at the child when Shinra Tensai, Naruto suddenly yelled, thrusting his open palms at her. She was suddenly thrown back by some invisible force, slamming back first into Shukaku, who wrapped its razor-riddled tail around her, and the Karasu twins appeared, putting their collective 8 blades to her throat. Naruto merely stared at his hands at what he just did. What did he do? He suddenly remembered the day he met the Jubi and the technique he used to kill all those civilians. He realized what he just did was half of that attack, the Rinnegan half. With all his training, he forgot to actually training with what his Dujutsu gave him. The Rinnegan already gave him a high affinity for all 5 elements, including some sort of gravity manipulation, which he mused he just did. Then there was the Sharingan part, which allowed him to copy jutsu and, apparently if his memories of that day were clear, somehow control black flames. He vowed to sneak into the Uchiha vaults to see what else the Dujutsu of the clan could do. Suddenly realizing the position of his opponent, he smirked. "Do you yield, Anko-sensei?" he asked. Anko merely scowled and nodded, mumbling about lucky gakis and their powers of a demon of myth as she was freed of her pointy prison. Once she was sure she wouldn't be attacked, she immediately slapped Naruto on his head. "You got lucky, Gaki," she yelled. "You're just jealous I'm so awesome." Naruto replied, rubbing his head where she hit him. Whatever. She muttered and left the training ground. Sore loser. Naruto muttered once she was gone. Well, this spar brought up many things. I should start training with my dujutsu and widen my repertoire of kekkei genkei, even if I can do that thing with explosion release. But where can I learn about it? Naruto whispered to himself. He didn't even know where explosion release came from. It's from Iwagakure. Jubi answered. Naruto paled. There was no way he could go to Iwa to learn about the kekkei genkei. Ignoring that it's outside the village, Iwa hates Konoha. With a passion. Thanks to the technique that made his father famous, Iwa hates Konoha, and especially the Yellow Flash, including anyone of his lineage, with a burning fury. If he stepped in the village of stone, he'd be slaughtered. Well, lucky for you, I have the memories of the two Jinchuriki from Iwa, so I have enough information to save you the trip and death. Jubi placated the boy. Oh, thank Kami. Jubi, I could kiss you if you were a woman. Naruto said seriously. Said demon was silent for a reaction, its odd body structure keeping it from any form of blushing, as the Jubi thought over telling her host the truth. Deciding against it for now, Jubi answered. Yeah, moving on, there was a man in Iwa who had the kekkei genkei, as well as a kinjutsu that allowed him easier usage of it. It gave him mouths on his hands, as the most effective way to use the bloodline was chewing and molding clay with his chakra to create living little clay statues that let him use them as high-grade explosives. Thankfully, I can perform the kinjutsu for you to do the same thing, without the extra mouth he had over his heart. He was quite the pyromaniac. Jubi explained. Okay, let's do this. Naruto yelled, only to be shot down by Jubi. It'll knock you out when you do it, so we'll do the process after you gift that Higurashi girl. It said. Naruto frowned. Fine, he said depressingly. He continued to train for the rest of the afternoon, oblivious to his tenant arguing with her thoughts. That night, Naruto was exhausted from his day of training. He had managed to better his control over his sand release, with himself and through Shukaku. He had also managed to grow his bonsai shrub into a complete tree. He promised to harvest the lumber tomorrow morning, so he could begin construction of Kuroari and Sanshuo and his second Biju puppet, Nibi. From Jubi's description, he had a feeling it would involve a liberal use of blaze release, seeing as how the original demon was made of black flames. Looks like he better up his training with his Sharingan aspect. He would need to move that Uchiha Vault infiltration date to, as soon as possible. Though Jubi demanded he not start on making the Nibi puppet, or train in its powers, until he mastered his Ichibi level to a respectable degree. He pouted at that. He believed he was good enough at Ichibi. But if Jubi said he needed to be better, he needed to be better. He got up from the ground, weaving through the craters his training made, and made his way to Tenten's house. Walking up the wall to be under her window, he knocked on it and waited. When he heard it slide open, he almost fell off the wall when Tenten's head popped out from the window. Hi, Naruto. She greeted relishing as he clutched his chest like he was going to have a heart attack. Damn it, don't do that. He whispered loudly, somehow. She giggled and pulled him into her room before someone could see him. Come on, I've been waiting all day. She said excitedly. Naruto chuckled at her enthusiasm. Okay, lay down on the floor and I'll get started. He instructed. Listening, she did so, and closed her eyes, waiting. Naruto channeled the necessary chakra in both his hands. I was serious about the magnet release. You still want it? He asked, just to make sure. She only nodded silently. Naruto nodded as well and moved the visible orbs of chakra in his hands to float over his stomach in a small tower. Letting them float freely, he hovered his hand over the top orb and slowly pushed down. He watched as Tenten's face contorted in pain. Almost subconsciously, he seized her right hand to help her through the pain. He didn't know why he did, he just did. He rested his hand on her stomach as he pushed the last of the chakra constructs into the core of her chakra system. He allowed her to almost crush his hand in the pain and thanked Kami. She seemed to be used to some sort of pain and didn't cry out. Once he was sure it was over, he lifted her up and laid her in her bed, bringing the blanket over her. He smiled as she curled up under the covers, clearly exhausted. She seemed to mutter something to Naruto. Said Blonde leaned in. Huh? He asked quietly. She muttered again, causing him to lean in more. Say again girlie, I'm a tad deaf. He said, doing an impersonation of an old man. She threw him for a loop when her head leaned forward and captured his lips in her own, his face reddening fiercely. Once she let go of his lips and laid back down, she managed to talk loud enough for him to hear. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," she said. Naruto merely stood there, leaned in close, frozen, as his mind tried to process what just happened. Anytime, Tenten-chan," he whispered and made his way to the window. He mechanically crawled out, closed it behind him, and made his way home, face red the entire way. Slowly his famous foxy grin grew on his face as he jumped into the air, silently whooping in some sort of triumph. He basically ran home so he could go to sleep, but Jubi reminded him of the ritual for the kinjutsu that could aid him with his explosion release. He nodded and procured his bottle of ink, seeing as Jubi explained he would need to draw the seal array on the floor for him to do so. Naruto quickly drew the minuscule kanji for the seal, taking care not to make any mistakes. One mistake and he could kill him, or blow his home up, or it could do nothing and he just wasted so much ink. Standing outside the array, he looked it over, hearing Jubi agree it was exactly what it showed, and went on his knees, resting his hands in the 2 circles for the ritual. He channeled his chakra in the array and awaited the pain that was sure to come. He sure as fuck wasn't ready for this. This pain was the worst thing he could ever imagine. It felt like some was jamming a kunai in the palms of his hands repeatedly, while at the same time Jubi's chakra was healing them. He could feel his tenketsu being rearranged within his hands as the process lasted for 10 seconds but felt like an hour. When it finally stopped, he fell to his side, everything dulled by pain. He thought he heard some beautiful voice apologize to him about the pain, but shrugged it off as the pain messing with his head. Standing up with extreme effort, he trudged into his bed, not even noticing he was stepping in a small puddle of his own blood, or the fact he could taste the coppery life liquid, and collapsed into his bed, completely unconscious. Inside his mind, Jubi decided she would tell him the truth in the morning. As a light engulfed the hulking demon, its white silhouette shrank, the blood on Naruto's hands and the floor floating up as a light flew from his stomach to it. The next morning, Naruto woke up with a groan in his bed as he sat up. "What hit me?" he whispered hoarsely, rubbing his head with his right hand. "And why do I taste hair?" he questioned for some odd reason. When he tried to bring his hand down, he found it was stuck. Pulling on it, he yelped as he felt a few hairs get pulled out of his scalp and looked at his hand, only to turn green. On the palm of his hand was a mouth. It had sharp teeth, like a shark, and it was currently eating the strands of hair it apparently pulled. Shakily raising his other hand, he found his other hand was the same. He did the only thing he could think of. He screamed. He was flipping his shit. He was freaking out so bad he didn't even notice the figure in front of his bed. "Hello Naruto-kun," a melodious voice greeted. Naruto sat on his bed, mouths in his hands, face crimson, as he stared at the heavenly beauty before him. This woman was a goddess in terms of beauty and grace. Her hair was a black waterfall from the top of her, reaching the small of her back, a bang hiding her right eye, her left showing the same design as her eye in her biju form. Her skin was an oddity, as most of it was gray, except for the black area around the bottom of her face. She smiled softly as Naruto glanced over the rest of her, finding a pair of breasts rivaling the size of various beautiful women in the village, half covered by her silver kimono with black trim. Her obsidian skin doing nothing to detract from her figure. A black sash around her waist just under her smooth, toned stomach. The skirt of the kimono stopped just above her knees, showing shapely legs giving way to dainty feet. Swaying behind her were 10 tails, designed much like the Jubi's, almost looking like they were made of rock. As he stared, blood slowly leaked from his nose, and he fell back, losing consciousness, eliciting a giggle from the strange woman. Poor Naruto-kun, first time he's ever seen a woman. Too bad he's 8, or... She left off, staring at his prone form with a lustful grin, licking her lips but slowly shook her head of those thoughts to get back to more important matters. Deciding her figure would only distract him, she closed her kimono top and sauntered over to his bed, sitting next to him and shaking him awake. When he slowly groaned and sat up, he saw her again, only lacking the view of her wonderful breasts. He stopped that train of thought with a mantra of, "I'm not a pervert. I'm not a pervert. I'm not a pervert. Nice to see you awake, Naruto-kun," she said, her tone full of mirth as Naruto realized that moment actually happened and blushed accordingly. "Who are you?" he asked, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. She raised a brow in amusement and showed her tails again, the pattern in her eye spinning. Naruto suddenly pointed at her, realizing it. "Jubi!" he yelled. Thankfully, he had no neighbors so no one really heard him. She nodded. "How?" he asked, slightly afraid that the being that the Rikudo Sennin feared was free again. "Is the seal broken?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, Naruto-kun, the seal isn't broken. I just managed to leak out a bit of my yokai and mix it with your blood to create a physical body for myself. But I can return to your mindscape whenever you want, so no worries about people seeing me," she explained. Naruto nodded and suddenly realized the pair of mouths in his hands mindlessly chomping at the air. How do I get these to stop?" he asked. She giggled. "You have to will them to stop. They can't go away, though," Jubi explained. Naruto nodded and concentrated his chakra to the mouths and they eventually stopped, shutting close. Finally, he sighed. He turned to the apparently female Jubi and blushed as memories of her almost completely bare chest flooded his mind. Banishing those thoughts to the abyss that was his attention span, Naruto voiced the question buzzing in his head. "So what do we do since this happened?" he asked, gesturing to the Jubi semi-freed from her host. She shrugged her shoulders, letting her hidden breasts jiggle tantalizingly, and smiled at him. "I guess I can help you train. And when you get older, I can train you in other things." She purred hotly, turning to the side, her skirt lifting ever so slightly, showing more delicious skin to Naruto, who only blushed crimson and fought the encroaching darkness. "And I have some more puppet ideas that I need to show you instead of just tell you," she added. Naruto raised his eyebrow, his curiosity piqued. "Is it the Sanbi? I thought you wanted me to finish one, learn all its technique and use in yokai, then move on to the next tale." Naruto reminded her. "I did, but these won't be Biju puppets. These are puppets of a clan of beings called Predacons," she reassured him. "A group of 5 robot animals that could transform into humanoids or combine into the mightiest warrior, Predaking. I'm going to help you build them," she added. Naruto was in awe at the sound of these Predacons. Thinking over what she said, he asked a question. "How am I going to have transforming and combining puppets? Remember the mechanisms Karasu has for the joint attack with Kurowari? All the detachable limbs and head? We'll be applying that, but on a wider scale, the puppet, exploding from its beast form and recombining into its humanoid form. The same will be said for making Predaking. We'll start on Dive Bomb, the hawk." She then spent the next few days with Naruto creating the first component of Predaking, Dive Bomb. 1 week later, Naruto stood in his training ground in front of his newest creation, Dive Bomb, in its hawk mode. A head of blackened wood, yellow eyes on either side as its body clacked with the wooden limbs, large wings fully open to the sky, sheaths for the feathers on its sides, 7 long, golden blades popping out to form the wings, as its body was hidden behind a cloak, as it was perched on its lethal talons, just over Naruto's height. Its body was full of dangerous mechanisms, weapons dipped in poison, as was the wont of any puppet master, as well as the mechanisms that let it transform. Speaking of which, Naruto decided to see how that worked. With a flick of his finger controlling the puppet exploded into its pieces, hidden limbs coming out from the torso of the bird form, as things moved along channels in their metal tracks, the bird head opening and the beak sliding back along the head, revealing a humanoid face underneath. As the form was finished, and there stood Dive Bomb, just a bit taller than his hawk form. "Transformation successful," Naruto said with a smile. "Very impressive, Naruto-kun. I have an idea on how you can incorporate the puppet into your taijutsu, even when it's sealed," Jubi explained. "Really?" Naruto asked excitedly. Tell me. He was jumping with barely contained energy. She giggled and sauntered over to him and whispered her plan into his ear. They would be training in his taijutsu, the fox claw style, a style Jubi derived from Kyuubi, as it would suit Naruto, who had a definite fox quality to him, both in mind and body. It relied on being faster than your opponent and attacking major weak points to bring them down under their own power. Creating a stronger than normal cage bunshin, Naruto settled into the beginning stance, sliding his feet from the center of his body, the right forward, knee straight, muscles tense, ready to spring into action, the left to the back, knee bent, muscles relaxed but ready to fight, head brought low, hands splayed open in claw-like fashions, in front of his chest. With a silent signal, he sprung forward, Dive Bomb's wings popping into existence behind him, propelling him forward greatly, giving him momentum for a spin kick to the clone's torso, throwing it back. He continued his flight forward until he appeared behind his flying clone, swiping his hand at its head. Dive Bomb's clawed hand appearing, mimicking his movements, ricocheting the clone back forward. As Naruto flew under it and did a straight-up donkey kick to the clone's chin, Dive Bomb's leg aiding him, as he flew after it, and appeared above it, his hand opened to the sky as an orb of chakra formed, the energy of body and spirit within causing a whirlpool inside, as he thrust it into the clone's stomach, rocketing it to the ground. Rasengan. Over the week of his assembly of Dive Bomb, Jubi took her clone and a large group of his clones to teach him one of the jutsu of his father, Namikaze Minato. He had officially been able to do the Rasengan, though with help from a cage bunshin, within 6 days, but he didn't stop for a 7th day, and could do it by himself now. Naruto learned the technique, though deadly on its own, was incomplete. His father wanted to add an element to the technique, but due to circumstances he couldn't. Naruto vowed to complete his father's dream and add all the elements to it. Naruto smirked down at the puff of smoke that was his defeated clone as he fell down, slowing his descent with Dive Bomb's wings. Excellent, Naruto-kun. Your fighting style will only become more deadly as you complete Predaking. Just imagine, a knee to an enemy's stomach and a rhino head pops out, the horn skewering them, or a bull's appearing, stabbing them with its horns. Or the ferocity of a lion or puma. Jubi was drooling at the possibilities, until Naruto snapped her out of it. She giggled nervously and attempted to compose herself. Anyway, how far are you on making the Nibi puppet? She asked. I've made the body but I don't know how to contain the flames of either Blaze Release or Amaterasu to give it its natural look. Naruto explained, unsealing the bland-looking puppet of the two-tailed cat. Perhaps you can do it properly if we train your Fuinjutsu and Nibi's yokai. Jubi mused. How? I can't train in any yokai without alerting the entire village. Naruto reminded. Maybe I can help, Gaki. A familiar voice responded behind him. Turning around, he found the smirking visage of his friend and sparring buddy, Mitarashi Anko. The Forest of Death is full of monsters spilling out their own yokai, so you can train there. She explained, taking the idea of throwing an 8-year-old child into a forest full of apparently demonic animals in stride. Naruto's face drained of color at the idea of just throwing himself into the forest, but before he could decline her, Jubi accepted, sealing his fate. With his head hung in fear, Naruto followed the Chunin, as his tenant had disappeared into the seal, to Training Ground 44. As he stood at one of the entrances, he looked to Anko with an almost pleading look. Do I have to? He asked. At her nod, anime waterfall tears fell from his eyes as he trudged into the forest, specifically the S-rank section, where the other dozen signatures would merely disguise his yokai. Once he was in the center of said section, Jubi reappeared, her presence scaring away any other demons. What am I supposed to do now? Naruto asked. Enter your two-tailed state and channel the yokai into your hands. Jubi ordered. Nodding, Naruto closed his eyes as he called upon the hot feeling of the yokai as it bubbled to the surface. One tail. Short ears pointing to the sides on a flat head, a thick single tail swaying behind him. Naruto opened his eyes to the normal eyes of the Shukaku, golden with a 4-point star for a pupil, for small circles around it, as black rings formed around his eyes. Calling on more, his thick tail split into 2 smaller tails, swaying wildly as the crimson cloak around him seemed to flicker as if it were made of fire now, and the ears lengthened and swept back over his head, and his eyes changed to heterochromatic, the right yellow and the left green. 2 tails. He concentrated yokai into his hands and, almost subconsciously, went on his knees and put his palms to the ground, black veins going through the ground as his own hands grew pale, his veins popping into view, as he felt 2 signatures rumble beneath him. He closed his eyes again and frowned. Forgive me, Kami, for I have sinned. He whispered and snapped his hands up, the signatures following in an explosion of dirt and dust as he panted, reverting out of his two-tailed state and stood. As a Nekomata, the Nibi was the progenitor of the summoning clan of the same species, many of its members acting as the Shinigami's pet, aiding him in collecting souls. Associated with the god of death, the demonic feline summoning clan was capable of raising the dead, a technique Naruto could access with its yokai. Standing before him were Senju Hashirama and Tobirama, the Shodai and Nidaime Hokages, completely resurrected. Naruto had committed a personal sin, defiling two spirits who had passed on and summoning them into their mortal coils. They were not sacrifices surrounded in ash to form the visages of the Hokages, they were them. Walking towards them slowly, the second he touched their bodies, they fell, limp and dead, into his arms, as he carried them into his workshop, apartment, intent on adding them to his collection of puppets. 2 weeks later, Naruto was done with his task of making the Shodai and Nidaime Hokages into his puppets. With their power in his hands, none could stand against him. But, he felt dirty for defiling their spirits to make them his weapons. While a shinobi would use every opportunity to make new weapons, there were just some moral lines one shouldn't cross, and Naruto stepped all over this line. While he would make a puppet out of anyone who interested him, there was something wrong about making the two strongest shinobi in history into puppets. Asking the Jubi about it, he found his answer: they were family. He was distantly related to the Sannin, Senju Tsunade, and by proxy, the Hokage brothers, so he made puppets out of his granduncles. That left a bad taste in his mouth. But after his little moment of emo-ness, he was ecstatic to find out he was related to 3 Kages. Determined to make them proud, Naruto began rigorous training in their jutsu, both for his own ninjutsu arsenal, and for their effectiveness as puppets. Over the course of his training, he was visited by his new friend, Tenten. The pair of children red as tomatoes at the memory of the night Naruto gave her the 2 Kekkei Genkei. Deciding to take it slow, the two became friends and training partners. Tenten gobsmacked when she met Jubi, saw his cage and Biju puppets, and all the power he held. Together, they trained in steel release and magnet release, using the two in conjunction, creating a slew of new jutsu, including one that magnetized the granules around them, including weapons and a new ability they created from steel release, iron sand. When Naruto told Tenten that this ability was what made the Sandaime cage so powerful, she had a fangirl moment at the thought of being a powerful kunoichi and a future role model for other kunoichi everywhere, contradicting the idea that kunoichi were naturally weaker than male shinobi. Naruto chuckled at her enthusiasm and they continued their training, slowly building up Tenten's chakra reserves and stamina once they started on physical training. At around 6, Tenten left, kissing Naruto on the cheek, both children crimson as they said their goodbyes, and Naruto sighed contentedly at her retreating figure. Naruto-kun, I found a schematic in Sasori's chambers on something I think will interest you. Jubi chimed in Naruto's head. Naruto remembered Jubi offered to go back to Sanagakure and look for any secret compartments in Sasori's chambers for anything special while he trained with Tenten. He wondered what she found that was apparently so interesting. Quickly going inside, Naruto sat on his bed, entering his mindscape to appear in front of the Jubi. What's so interesting you called for me here? He asked. Jubi merely wore a shit-eating grin and threw Naruto a rolled-up set of blueprints, which he opened and his jaw immediately hit the floor and his eyes threatened to pop out of their sockets. In the heat of the moment, he tackled Jubi and attacked her lips with his own. This is wonderful, Jubi-chan. I'll start on it right away, he said excitedly, disappearing from his mindscape, leaving a stunned and crimson-faced Jubi as she felt her lips after the kiss. Naruto immediately ran to his desk and set about redrawing the schematics Jubi gave him. Within an hour, he had remade the blueprints to the last detail. I wonder what I should call it. Naruto mused out loud as he rubbed his chin while making some minor adjustments on the blueprints. Suddenly, a metaphorical light bulb turned on. I know, I'll call it a pistol, he said. After Naruto had remade the schematics for what he called a pistol, he decided to make a puppet that uses it to the greatest effect, as well as integrate it to his person, only to find he didn't need to. With some explaining thanks to the Jubi, Naruto discovered the wonders of his Asura path from his Rinnegan. It pretty much made him into what he called a super badass puppet from the future. In layman terms, it momentarily made him a machine, so he didn't have a need to outfit himself with a hidden pistol. He might have even thrown in some blades and poison darts. In another dimension, Ezio Auditore da Firenze sneezed lightly as he prowled closer to Uberto Alberti. Shrugging it off, he jumped from his perch, hidden blades finding themselves in his target's neck. Back with Naruto. When he first tried out his Asura path techniques, he felt fucking weird. Just the feeling of part of his body turning metal, then doing some weird stuff like pulling his arm on a cord and shooting out a bunch of missiles, or his head opening up and shooting a chakra beam, felt so strange. It's like he lost feeling in those parts of his body, and when he did stuff with them, it felt like he lost a limb. Shrugging that off, Naruto began construction on his puppet he'd named Sharpshooter, only for him to have an uninvited guest. "You will die here, demon," an unfamiliar voice said. Naruto sighed. It would seem some from the chakra he could sense Shinobi got it in his head to try and kill the Kyuubi brat. Not only was this narrow-minded, it was wrong. He held the Jubi, damn it. Get it right. Anyway, turning around to face this newcomer, Naruto was shocked to find a member of the Nara clan scowling at him. He was confused. Weren't the Nara understanding of his condition, and if they weren't they just too damn lazy to give a fuck? So what was this guy's story? Who are you? I can tell you're a Nara, but your hatred of me and just coming here to do something about it throws me off. Naruto voiced his confusion. The Nara man's scowl deepened. I'm half Nara. My mother was a Fuma you killed 8 years ago. The pineapple-haired man snarled. A Fuma? Interesting. An odd clan that specialized in those oversized shuriken. Combining that with the shadow style of the Nara and you get. Naruto mused aloud, leaving the sentence hanging as he couldn't think of anything. But the Nara Fuma man heard him. You get this. Unsealing a Fuma shuriken and strapping it to his back and bringing his hands together in the rat seal his clan was known for in using their Kagemane, instead of his shadow creeping along the ground to reach Naruto. His shadow traveled up his own body, turning his form black as night, even his Fuma shuriken, as chakra blades formed on his forearms and the points of his giant shuriken. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. How odd. Becoming a true shinobi, one with the shadows. And seeing a Nara with an elemental affinity other than the shadows if quite odd. I see your Fuma blood is stronger than your Nara. You don't seem nearly as lazy as others have met, and again I point out the Fuuten affinity, not even mentioning such an affinity as odd in Hai no Kuni. He voiced his surprise. Seeing the dark man prepare to strike, Naruto settled in his fox claw stance, feeling the ki rolling off the man intensify. Perhaps he sees this stance as further proof Naruto was the Kyuubi? Regardless, he shall die, and make a worthy addition to Naruto's collection. Both shinobi sprang forth, meeting in the middle, engaging in taijutsu, or in the case of the Nara man, nin taijutsu. Naruto made sure to steer clear of the chakra blades, knowing they would cut clean through him, and fought back with his own form of puppetry taijutsu, using palms thrusts and shoulders charges to hit the man with talons and the hard head of dive bomb. Finally deciding to end it, Naruto took to the sky, staying afloat with dive bomb's wings, as he formed a Rasengan in his hand, deciding against using an element or sub-element, as he wanted the body intact. God, he was dark. Taking advantage of the man's shock at seeing the technique of the Yondaime, Naruto struck, driving the technique into his stomach, using enough power that the force of being shot into a tree snapped his neck from the whiplash and he suffered internal bleeding from the actual technique. Checking his pulse after the shadows over his body disappeared, Naruto was happy to find the man was dead, but 98% intact. The 2% was merely the organs he lost. For every human puppet he'll make, he makes sure he keeps 2 organs, in case someone he cares about might need a donor, or maybe he could sell them to the hospital when they're short. Anyway, Naruto retrieved the body, Fuma shuriken included, and sealed it in a scroll, along with what he started on Sharpshooter, and went home, intent on beginning on his next human puppet immediately. This was going to get messy. 5 hours later, that was still fucking disgusting. Naruto said flatly as he walked out of his workshop, taking off bloodied rubber gloves and taking out a new scroll with the kanji for shadow. Unsealing it, the puff of smoke dissipated rather quickly to show his first human puppet, which he named True Shinobi. True Shinobi took the form of a thinly armored stereotypical ninja, with a black skin-tight jumpsuit that left just the dark yellow eyes uncovered, all under dark red armor that Naruto took the main design from the Shoden, only it covered every inch of the puppet, and it wasn't as bulky, with a head crest trimmed in white on the forehead, the symbol of his Jubigan in the center, as the modified Fuma shuriken was strapped to its back. It now looked ahead of its time like Naruto's Asura Path components, and it didn't have blades. Those would be activated with food and chakra, as would a pair of blades on the forearms and calves. Happy with his first human puppet, Naruto sealed True Shinobi away and went back inside, cleaning up any bits left to continue his work on Sharpshooter. Naruto also decided on something that might act as something that could see through enemies that excelled in stealth. It would be able to sense chakra signatures, heat signatures, and see through some invisibility techniques, like the one the famous Jiraiya of the Sannin created, surely for his spy network, right? Right? Anyway, Naruto set what he started of Sharpshooter on the desk and continued his work, setting aside some space for the armor puppet he thought of. 2 days later, Naruto stepped out of his workshop, his puppet floating behind him in its cloak, which he styled more like a poncho, and a slightly bedraggled Western-style hat that, from the salesman who imported the accessory for him, was called a cowboy hat. The Western world sure was a strange place if they had a special hat for half-cow people. Shaking his head of those thoughts, Naruto looked no different than when he decided to make his supposed, anti-stealth puppet. Sensing a familiar chakra signature approaching, Naruto channeled chakra to his eyes, and the air around his temples distorted as odd implements appeared, apparently hidden under a cloaking technique. Shaped like thick rectangles with an upward spike on the outer edges and downward spikes at the center of the face as a halved mouthpiece appeared and folded up to meet with the eyepieces. 3 red dots appeared at the edges of each eyepiece as Naruto's sight was thrown into a sea of blues, greens, and yellows, the sky thrown into more of a sea of the colors of fire, especially the sun that glared down on him. Switching to chakra signatures, Naruto's vision was thrown into black with white outlines and not much else, as the animals he saw earlier didn't have chakra networks, until he noticed the fast-moving network heading towards him. Tenten, he thought with a smile as he switched the vision to normal and waited for her to appear in the field, feeling like showing off his new design to her. As Tenten appeared in the center of the field from her tree hopping, she spied what she thought was Naruto, but his face was covered with some weird metal plating, and 3 red lights on the temples. Suddenly she heard an oh-so-slightly muffled voice, "Hi, Tenten-chan." Blinking as the plating folding away and shimmered out of view around Naruto's face, showing his foxy grin at her gobsmacked visage from what he just showed her. "What was that?" she asked incredulously. She had never seen anything like it, especially from Naruto's puppets, as some were a tad out there. "That was my newest creation. I don't have a name for it, but it allows me to see chakra and heat signatures and through cloaking techniques. No one can hide from me when I have this," he explained smugly. His response was a bop to the head and a face-to-face with some dirt. "Don't get overconfident because you can see extra things. Someone can smash that and really damage your face and daze you so they can get a killing blow." She admonished and lectured him. Ma, you worry too much, Ten-chan." Naruto tried to shrug off her lecturing with a chuckle, only to be silenced by her piercing glare of feminine righteousness that said, "You know I'm right. Anyway, you up for some training?" He tried to dissuade her anger. She immediately perked up, a determined glint in her eye. "Yeah, I've been working on the steel and magnet release techniques," she piped. Chuckling, Naruto gestured to Sharpshooter behind him. "And I've made a new puppet based on some schematics Jubi-chan found in Sasori Tomi's place. I call it a pistol," he announced, brandishing the weapon in question using Sharpshooter, who brandished its arm as it transformed similarly to Naruto's arm when he used Shirado no Ko, but it showed the arm was more of a shell to the pistol mechanism inside. Her eyes were wide with awe until she shook herself out of her stupor. "You based a single puppet around one gimmick? Isn't that a bit limited?" she asked, critiqued. "I am no fool. He still has hidden blades and poison gas mechanisms. He's just also filled to the brim with pistols and some modified guns I created. Let's train my Sharpshooter and Asura Path against your steel and magnet release," he said, determined to show he wasn't narrow-minded enough to have a puppet only have one form of attack. She smirked and jumped back until she was equal distance from the center as him. "Just your puppet and Asura Path? So no Biju or Predacon puppets or your own ninjutsu? That's awfully limiting, Naruto-kun," she teased. "Just seeing if you can still win after I limit myself that much." Naruto smirked back. Tenten grimaced. She had yet to beat them in their spars no matter what she tried, but she was determined to beat him now that he limited himself so much. Bet you a trip to Ichiraku's that I can. She offered, knowing it would rile him up. Her response was automatically activating her steel release. Shintuse no Yoroi, so she wouldn't be pierced by the chakra-propelled projectiles escaping from the wrists of Sharpshooter. Guess talking's a waste, she mused to herself as she activated her Hu no Sume, panther claws, her metal fingers growing into long blades as she rushed at Naruto, only for Sharpshooter to intercept her, blocking with a hidden blade the same obsidian as her body. Steel release blades? She gasped in surprise. Naruto smirked. Yep. Steel release can cut through anything except itself. And I doubt there is anyone else in the elemental nations that has steel release besides you. He explained. Elsewhere, a short, young-looking white-haired man sneezed, groaning in disgust as the bandages that covered his mouth were now covered in snot. With Naruto and Tenten attempted to push Sharpshooter back, but the clearly stronger puppet won out and pushed her back, finally lifting its head from under the shadow of its hat, showing its right eye was covered in a metal plate cut like an eye patch, and its mop of spiky black hair was swept back under its hat as the eye patch lifted off its eye, showing the Sharingan eye underneath. Naruto chose the Sharingan because of its dual purpose of extrasensory perception, and its ability to allow the wielder to view the enemy in slow motion allowed for the perfect gunner. However, with the injection of the Dujutsu came two eyes, and this puppet only had one. So Naruto agreed with Jubi to make a second Sharpshooter that will have the remaining eye, which he kept in a jar inside his workshop, however morbid that seemed. Tenten blurred through a set of hand seals, using a technique they developed together, and slammed her palms on the ground, as a large hunk of earth was changed into a large clump of iron sand, which she controlled using her magnet release, exactly like the Sandane case cage. Willing her chakra into the cloud of black sand, the iron particles condensed into a large cube. Satetsu Kesuhu, Suchi. With a thrust of her arms, the cube rocketed towards Sharpshooter, who pointed its arms towards the cube as the shells of its arms popped open, revealing a circle of pistols wired together as flat, wide cords shot out of its ribs and connected to the string of guns, bullets rolling down them into the pistols, creating a faux minigun as it hailed bullets upon the cube, shooting holes through it as it soon broke down into the particles, which Sharpshooter quickly dodged, knowing if the particles got in its joints, it would be all over for the puppet. Through the veil of raining iron sand shot out two arms, Naruto's fists rocketing towards his opponent in the spar as she dodged valiantly as the flying fists made sharp turns and swarmed around her like a cloud of gnats baying for a punch to land. Jumping up and curling up into a ball as small as she could, controlling the iron sand to form a shield around her and explode outwards, blowing the arms away as they flew back to Naruto and reattached, turning back into normal arms. Bringing Sharpshooter to him, it floated behind him as it pointed its right arm at Tenten, the hand folding down at the wrist as the barrel of the main gun inside its arm extended out, as Tenten attempted to hide in the tree line, away from the dangerous-looking weapon. Channeling chakra to his visor as it appeared again, Naruto searched for Tenten's chakra network. Finding it, he took aim and fired, shooting right through a tree and hitting Tenten's steel skin. Did he really expect her to just stay still and take that bullet? With the appearance of that second chakra signature, no he didn't. Tenten gasped as she felt a pair of blades capture her neck in a scissor hold, threatening to decapitate her if she channeled chakra to her skin. Turning her head ever so slightly, she spied a new puppet holding her in place, holding a wide squared-off sword with a serrated edge near the guard as a smaller extended arm held a copy of the blade, holding her in place. She sighed in defeated. Fine, you win, Naruto-kun. Cheater. She mumbled the last part under her breath as the puppet withdrew its blades from her neck, showing the whole puppet as she jumped down. Following the twin arms on one arm up, she found the construct had 4 arms made as such, as it wore a black cloak that barely covered its shoulders and a head that had the same faceplate as Naruto's new visor. White spiky hair swept back behind the visor. A pair of odd mechanisms on its back like a pair of lethal wings. Small limbs as long as a grown mont's arm covered in a cord with shuriken cut into fourths attached around the limbs, creating a pair of chainsaws as they sat in holsters on the shoulder blades. 4 empty sheaths on each hip holstered on small arms holding them. 3 modified kunai strapped to each of its calves as a second cloak was tied around its waist, reaching, in tatters, to just above its ankles, showing its odd feet. A space between the heel and the balls of its feet just wide enough for the odd kanai and 4 claw-like toes attached to its otherwise rounded feet. "Whoa," she said as she watched it walk over back to Naruto. It sheathed the 8 blades in its hands and mini hands at its hips. Seeing the smirk on Naruto's face, she knew the spar wasn't over yet. Sighing and calling over her iron sand, she spread it across the ground and created about 4 iron sand clones as they charged at the unnamed puppet. It took a stance, splaying its arms open in a sort of, "come at me, bro," pose as a ball made itself known in each shoulder, a thin cord slithering out, 3 smaller claw-like cords growing out the ends as they grabbed the chainsaws at its shoulder blades, channeled chakra into them, turning them on as the shuriken blades spun around the limb and swept them through the ground in front of it, drawing a line in the ground as if to challenge the clones. The 4 Setetsu Bunshin charged at the puppet, their hands tapering into flat blades, using Seitestu Keshu. Ken, iron sand gathering assault. Sword. The closest taking a swipe at the puppet's midsection, only to be dodged and a fist with steel release-laden knuckle dusters to make contact with its stomach, throwing it back into a second clone, dispelling them both on impact. Tenten had the sneaking suspicion the puppet would be smirking if it was alive. Deciding to join her iron sand clones in the fray, she activated her Shintusei no Yoroi and Eichu no Sume, lagging behind one of the remaining 2 clones as it jumped up and attempted to decapitate the puppet with its leg transformed into a blade of the iron particles, only to be stopped by its forearm and the mini-arm to grasp it by the ankle and toss it aside, leaving the wires holding the chainsaws to attempt to destroy the 4th clone with a X/, only for the close proximity Tenten to will the clone to, while still be slashed, weave its sand particles after the slash and reform right in front of the puppet, morphing its right arm into a stub of a brick, creating a small iron sand hammer, only for the puppet's knee to come in contact with its chin, snapping the head back and dispelling the clone, leaving the original and the clone it tossed aside earlier, coming back with a vengeance, only for 2 of the modified kunai to be thrown into its chest, not really impeding its course towards the puppet, until it shot its foot up into its chin, jump in the air, land on the kunai, using the slots in its feet to grip the kunai, and seemingly dance on its chest, raising and lowering its legs repeatedly, stabbing into its chest until a final sweep with a foot-held kunai at its neck detached its head and the puppet to backflip off the collapsing iron sand, removing the kunai mid-air and holstering them on its legs, landing in front of the gobsmacked Tenten at what she just witnessed. "Did your puppet just dance my clone to death?" she asked incredulously. "Maybe," Naruto teased. At that, Tenten shot her arms into the air, turning to leave. "Done," she simply said and left, leaving Naruto and his puppets in the dust. "Did she just quit?" Naruto asked seemingly no one, only for both his puppets to nod. At this, his right eyebrow twitched. "Gah, who asked you?" He mumbled and sealed them in their respective scrolls, deciding to train in some of his sub-elements. The day after the spar with Tenten, Naruto set about creating some more puppets, suddenly realizing he had no defensive puppets. He had also successfully completed the Nibi puppet, utilizing blaze release to imitate its body of obsidian flames, officially ending his training in 2 Tales of Yokai and moving on to 3. He decided the Sanbi would be a carrier puppet like the human puppet Sasori made of an ex-Suna Junin, Hiriko. He started building both the Sanbi and another original puppet he would call Holy Man after reading a cool manga called Hellsing. It showed the Western world's religions and it gave Naruto some cool ideas for a new puppet. Grabbing a robe-like cloak, a wig of straight white hair, and numerous puppet parts, Naruto set to work. Due to what he had in mind, the forging of the weapons would need a lot of steel release manipulation. This was going to take a while. Halfway through building Holy Man and Sanbi, Naruto received a visitor, the Sandame. Thankfully, Naruto had talked to Sarutobi about his dream of being a puppet master, showcasing his many puppets, except the Biju, and he kept his true status as the Jubi Jinchuriki, not the Kyubi, a secret, for now. Jubi-chan, and his own common sense, warned him that would be giving away too much information. He managed to exercise his chakra control enough to where he could hide the mouths on his hands, disguising them as another crease in his palms. So the Sandame didn't question what he was working on, except for the odd carapace of the large puppet he was making, the destined Sanbi, only to be reassured it was going to be large for a reason, given by the weaknesses pointed out by Sasori in his journal about puppet masters. Hiruzen came to tell Naruto he was planning to enroll him in the Shinobi Academy in the fall, when the semester started, a fact that excited Naruto at the prospect of learning to be a shinobi, and more importantly, making more friends. Wishing him good luck on his project, Sarutobi left Naruto to his devices, the blonde sighing in relief when his cover wasn't blown with the suspicious form of the large puppet he was making. The tales would tip anyone off that knew about the Sanbi, but thankfully, Sarutobi discarded his suspicions, as how would an 8-year-old know about the Biju from Mizu no Kuni? Shrugging off his worry, Naruto activated his own Shintusei no Yoroi and grabbed a piece of his chest, pulled a slab of metal out, utilizing his Jintsu Tekikyukyu, self-sustaining supply, technique to supply him with the metal for the largest weapon of Holy Man. Grabbing his chisel, Naruto set about carving out the parts he needed for what he had in mind. As a side project, Naruto set about another, mini-puppet. Like the visor, he showed Tenten that could help him control more than 10 puppets, as he was closing in on the double digits in terms of puppets, what with Ichibi, Nibi, the upcoming Sanbi, Sharpshooter, the sword-crazy puppet he showed Tenten, which he named simply Kenshi, the Shodem and Nidame, true shinobi, the upcoming Holy Man, and another puppet he decided to create that would be related to Holy Man, Tenshi. And as the first 3 stated, he had 6 more Biju puppets to go through, so he needed more fingers to control puppets. Anyway, he'd started on that project after these 2. He wiped the sweat from his brow hours later as the main weapon of Holy Man laid on the ground before him. The weapon was a massive cross, filled to the brim with weapons. In the top short notch was a mechanism that shot out a paper bomb, as well as 3 senbon containers on the panels that slid open to give the bomb launcher clearance. In the sides were holsters for 6 white pistols, and in the long bottom of the cross was a kunai launcher that worked like a minigun. He also created 2 smaller crosses where the only weapons were the senbon shooters in the 3 notches and the bladed, serrated bottom length rotated like a chainsaw. He installed 2 even smaller crosses on the forearms that worked like crossbows. He also gave Holy Man a white tanto strapped to the small of its back, a seal that gave it access to special white kunai, hidden blades in the wrists, poison bomb launches in upper arms after the arms folded down, a coiled-up bladed cord in the chest, and hidden blades in the heels of its feet. Sealing the crossbows, strapping the chainsaw crosses to its hips, and strapping the giant cross to its back, Holy Man was finished. As he connected his chakra strings to the puppet, he decided to add a few details and carved in a cross on the forehead, wrapped bandages over its eyes, and gave it a special cross necklace with his Jubigan symbol in the center around its neck. Naruto stepped back and was happy with his work. Sealing Holy Man in a seal of a cross on the back of his hand, Naruto set about finishing Sanbi, installing 1 Jubigan eye, as the Sanbi seemed to perpetually have one eye closed. Jubi didn't know why, and Naruto didn't really care, he just set about finishing the puppet. Every spike, which the Sanbi had a shit ton of, could detach on a chain and could be controlled with chakra through the Biju puppet, of course all dipped in poison. Its claws and even the trap of spikes that was its face were coated in poison, and the Sanbi had a hose in its mouth that fired highly pressurized water, as well as a seal on said hose that would add lightning chakra to it to make it more lethal. He also had seals all on the inside of the puppet to make it airtight in case someone used a wide-range poison cloud technique, as well as in case he went underwater for an extended period of time. Thankfully, the extra point of view from the eye of the Sanbi got rid of any unnecessary worries of seeing while inside the puppet. Naruto stepped out of the puppet after adhering the last seal and smiled at his work, then frowned. This was the easy part. Now came the difficult part. Learning to control 3 tails of yokai and the surreal water manipulation. Thankfully, training with the Nidame made him ready for this part. Sealing the carrier puppet in a tattoo with the kanji for Sanbi, and packing up his tools, Naruto set out for the Forest of Death, intent on beginning his training in yokai. He might even train a bit more in sub-elements. He wanted to test how fast swift release really is. Using Shunshin to appear in his designated training area, in the S-rank sector, Naruto called upon the combination of lightning and wind chakra for the obscure Kekkei Genkei. He grabbed a kunai and channeled wind chakra around it for maximum speed and minimum air resistance and threw it as hard as he could. He jumped into action with a silent command of Jinten, Muisho, and raced the kunai to his mark, a random tree in the distance. He beat the kunai there by spades and caught it with ease. He was pleased with this speed, but there was something more. It could be faster. Deciding to ask around for a taijutsu sensei, Naruto moved on to explosion release, grabbing a chunk of rock and using chakra to make it into usable clay, and tore off some pieces for his mouths to chew and mold with chakra. From what Jubi told him, the man from Iwa who had this technique molded chakra into animals, his most used being birds. Deciding to start there, Naruto molded the clay into the simplified birds. He found them exceedingly adorable and wished they didn't have to explode. Sighing and resigning the little guys to their fates, Naruto tossed them into the air lightly, forming a hand sign as they were engulfed in clouds of smoke and appeared much larger, and sent them towards another tree, yelling, "Katsu!" When they neared it, the birds going off in a pair of fantastic explosions. So that was C1. You said it goes from C0 to C4, Jubi-chan? Naruto asked his tenant aloud, seeing as no one could be here other than Anko, and he knew she was on a mission. Yes, Naruto-kun, C0 is using the mouth on his chest. It was a last resort suicide move. C2 is a dragon that spits out smaller dragons in exchange for segments of its tails. C3 is a large-scale bomb from some retarded abstract owl. And C4 is a giant clone of him that explodes in a mist of microscopic bombs that enter your bloodstream. Jubi answered, blushing slightly at this experience of Naruto's affectionate suffix. Naruto paled at the idea of C4. That sounded extremely dangerous but effective. He then had a crooked thought. You think it's possible to make a puppet that utilizes explosion release? He asked, stroking his chin in thought. Inside the seal, Jubi was mirroring him. I don't think so. The sheer motions of a mouth to knead the clay would be impossible for a puppet. She admitted. Naruto was downcast. Damn, it'd be cool to have a puppet using the clay. And I suppose making a human puppet of the guy who has this already wouldn't work? Naruto asked. Actually, I think it might, since he already has the ability to use the clay. It wouldn't work on a puppet because using a kinjutsu on one wouldn't work, even if you injected a chakra network into it beforehand. So making a puppet of this man might actually work. She responded. Naruto was excited at the prospect of using a puppet that could use Bakuden. He began training in some of the other less used sub-elements, like Shikuden, Ranten, and Maiden. When he asked Jubi about the techniques for each, he face-faulted. Ranten had only one technique and Shikuden and Maiden only had two each. He slapped himself in the face at the sheer laziness of some people. Storm Release created lasers. Do you know what one could do with lasers? And Scorch Release could be manipulated to make more lethal copies of Wind Release. Though, with Dark Release, it really was limited with its lone ability to absorb and redirect chakra. Not much else you can do with that. But it could also manipulate chakra, which could be infinitely useful. Speaking of absorbing chakra, Naruto already had an idea for a dark release Rasengan. Putting that idea on the back burner for now, Naruto set about creating the puppet he thought of alongside Holy Man, Tenchi. He grabbed a basic humanoid puppet and set about tinkering it, attaching 6 angel-like wings to its back and giving it a pair of naginata on the hips, outfitting it with the norm of poison-laden senbon launchers in the wrists, hidden blades in the arms, poison bomb launchers in the elbows, 6 blades like a ribcage in the torso, another set of poison bomb launchers in the knees, and hidden blades in the heels and out the sides of the legs. He also gave it a pair of halberds with the kanji for heaven on the blades and golden bandages around the handles. He also gave it a set of white kunai like Holy Man. He sealed Tenchi in the same tattoo as Holy Man. Thinking he had a pair of heavenly figures for puppets, he wondered if he should make a twin pair of hellish figures, a creature like the ones in the Hellsing manga he read in a devil. Perhaps, he'd have to wait and see. Naruto set out to train in some of the obscure sub-elements, mostly the supposed yin-yang release, which Jubi mentioned could create things out of his imagination. In fact, she explained the Rikudu Sennin used a yin-yang release technique called Banbutsu Suzu that separated her into the 9 biju and sealed her body in the moon. If there was a technique that could separate the power of the 10 tails, then there might be nothing this style could do. Deciding to start small and easy, Naruto grabbed a leaf from a nearby tree and sat in the lotus position, closing his eyes as he held the leaf in his left hand, feeling the texture of the leaf as he imagined the same thing in his mind, black and white at first to make it easy. His right hand was left open as he envisioned the monochromatic leaf appearing in said hand. As he felt the flow of chakra float above his hand, then stop, he dared to open his eyes and found a piece of paper cut in the vague shape of a leaf. Flipping it around, he found it didn't have the texture, the lines, the creases of the plant part, and as he tried to feel a texture other than paper, his concentration wavered, and the paper faded out of existence. He sighed. This was going to be tougher than he thought. He created an army of clones and set them to work on creating a leaf as he went back to his workshop, intent on creating what he had in mind, a carrier for his human puppets. It wouldn't be a carrier in the sense of Sanbi, it would just be a large puppet, but it would have something that sealed each human puppet within it. Skulls. He decided on skulls. Whether real skulls of wooden ones, he hadn't decided. Where was he going to get a bunch of skulls? He stopped in his tracks and smirked to himself as he appeared in the forest of death using a shunshin, already wearing his two tails cloak. He slammed his palms on the ground as skeletons rumbled out of the surface, enough for the amount of human puppets he had, with extras for the future. He could feel the hate-filled eyes of some Hyuga and Uchiha, as well as some other shinobi. If they attacked, then more puppets for him. Giving a prayer for the corpses he disturbed, Naruto cast them back to underground and took the skulls to his workshop, carving names of human puppets into their foreheads. Shodem, Naidame, True Shinobi, and left the others blank, for the future. For what he had in mind, the puppet that would have these skulls would need to induce fear just by looking at it, so he let out his inner madman and began construction. 5 hours later, Naruto stepped back from his newest creation, vaguely disturbed by it, but proud of himself for the same fact. Standing in front of him was the tallest puppet he had, even bigger than Kenshi. Its height was at the shoulders, as its head was horribly slouched forward on a ringed neck, the cables between each segment visible, as its face as the first thing someone would notice. With its mismatched eyes, one large and glassy like a doll with a stitch-like pattern from it down the cheek to the empty socket of the opposite eye, painted on streaks like a figure of sorrow, as its mouth was an oddity. The middle was the frontmost, with the sides of the mouth back an inch or two, showing wicked fangs of steel, iron studs on its chin. On its head were 5 large holes, for the fire seals or coiled cables within to escape, the latter an idea he took from Monzaemon's 10 masterpieces. Its body was cast in shadow from the large crow-like wings in place of its arms, the appendages reaching the floor with some feathers folded across the ground. As in place of legs it had bird-like limbs with large bulbous fingers as various torture implements folded out. Scalpels, hooks, serrated knives, small drills, needles, and other various bladed tools of some dark trade. Its entire torso was comprised of human skulls, making for a dark image as the entire figure looked like a crooked man given a bird's body, his tools of torture, and the prizes of his many victims. Naruto smirked at his newest creation. "I'll call you Damongo," he said as he sealed the disturbing puppet in a special seal on the back of his hand, adjusting the seal so he can summon the human puppets individually instead of Damongo then having to search through the puppet for the seal of the one he wants. It took some more hard work than he expected, but it was worth it, as he was another step up in the ladder of Fuinjutsu knowledge. Deciding to try out his puppets on some real enemies, Naruto created a clone that he ordered to stay here and possibly make any new puppets, as well as occupy anyone that should drop by, as he sneaked out of the village, looking for a bandit camp he heard about amongst the conversing Junin he passed by. Apparently there was one pretty close to Konoha that was causing a problem along a trade route, so Naruto decided to lift Konoha of a burden, as well as train with his puppets and ninjutsu. Hiding in the underbrush, Naruto watched the bandits as they clambered around, indulging in 2 of the 3 vices of a shinobi: alcohol and women, as it seemed these bandits also kidnapped women for their sick pleasures. Naruto would wipe these men off the face of the earth. He unsealed Damongo, Kenshi, and Holy Man, grabbing a skull from the former, True Shinobi, and threw it as far as he could into the camp, conveniently amongst some animal skulls from a prior feast. A nearby bandit who was guarding the armory tent heard a clatter and looked to the pile of bones and raised a brow as his eyes widened. He spied a human skull. He was sure they didn't eat anyone. They may be bandits, but cannibalism was too fucked up. Picking it up, he saw it had a carving of "True Shinobi" on the forehead. He gasped when the skull erupted in smoke and in its place appeared an armored shinobi with some weird-looking shuriken on its back. He only had enough time to scream out once before his head was detached from his body courtesy of a blade of wind chakra emitting from True Shinobi's forearm. It was enough to throw the entire camp into chaos once more bandits saw the armored puppet. Naruto decided to begin to true attack and sent in the 3 puppets he unsealed beforehand, Kenshi bisecting bandits with his many blades or the chainsaws on his back held with the moving cables out of his shoulders. Holy Man devastating more of the evil men with his combination paper bomb launcher and kunai minigun, slicing into others with one of his cross chainsaws. Demongo was the gory one as he latched onto some mont's back and began slicing up his head and drilling into his eyes, taking care not to pierce the brain, as the flexible blades that were its feathers wrapped around the man, slicing several arteries and injecting copious amounts of poison within his body, surely overkill from everything it was already doing. Grabbing the nearly dead mont's head, Demongo let its evil grin show in the golden sunset as it reared its abnormally long neck up and headbutted the man as hard as it could, caving in his skull and coating Demongo's face with blood, brain matter, and chipped pieces of bone, only for the latter two to fall off soon after. As Demongo shambled through the camp, butchering any bandits it came across, it found itself in front of the tent that held the women, one of the attractive middle-aged women poking her head out in fear, others behind her as they dared see what was happening. Snapping its head towards them, it raised one of its bulbous fingers to its blood-covered bear trap of a mouth and, with a special compartment Naruto installed filled with tiny ball bearings, made a rattling sound that vaguely sounded like it was shushing the women, as they seemed to understand it and hid back inside the tent. Demongo set about continuing its crimson duty. Reaching the main barracks where the bandits were pouring out of, Demongo barreled into the nearest one, its head slamming into the mont's stomach, Naruto activating the mechanism he divined from the 5th puppet of Chikamatsu's collection. The 5 cords rocketed out of its skull, impaling the man and skewering more of the primary victim's comrades within seconds. Waving its head, taking the men along with it, Demongo's seals of fire activated, azure flames trailing down the cables, incinerating the corpses, basking Demongo in a terrifying light of ghostly blue as the cables slowly retracted into its skull, having a head of hair, made of blue flames for a few seconds before the seals shut off. Kenshi was slaughtering men in jumps and spins and vaults that no mortal man could attempt. In one particular instant, Kenshi managed to balance itself while having 4 necks caught in its 8 pincer blades, just barely drawing blood. Another pair of heads so close to being gored by the chainsaws dangling on cords that writhed as if they lived, and another pair being held still by its special kunai held between its toes, as its feet could split open to hold the kunai in another radical way. The 8 men were silent as this 4-armed stranger had their lives in his hands and their deaths were truly in the hands of gravity and the stranger's stamina to keep this awkward pose. As if an unspoken signal was given, Kenshi seemed to use 2 men captured near its feet as kickoff points and twisted in the air, decapitating and or slitting the throats of all 8 men at once as it landed on both feet, showering in the blood that fell. Jumping towards another group, Kenshi continued its dark work. Holy Man was having a blast as it slaughtered men with liberal use of its giant cross outfitted with the bomb launcher and kunai minigun. Once the seals that launched the kunai ran it, the cross closed and it slammed the cross into the ground so it stood up, if slightly leaning to the right, and put its hand on the center of the holy symbol, the sides sliding open to show the 6 white pistols within. Grabbing all of them in a way only a puppet who didn't need to worry about the impossibilities of human flesh, it held the pistols as such. 1 each with the trigger around the index, 1 each upside with the trigger around the pinky, and the last wedged between the first 2 with the trigger around the thumb, creating a faux hand of 3 guns. Hammering on the triggers, Holy Man unleashed a hail of bullets on the men who were frozen at the sight of these foreign weapons. Grabbing the head of 2 men in the vice of its gun fingers, the men within the grips were safe, if not surely deaf, as the thunderous roars of the weapons shattered their eardrums and killed their allies. They thought they were safe, up until the very second the hidden blades in Holy Man's wrists pierced their brains, killing them instantly. Discarding the now empty pistols back into the cross, said weapon closing, as it grabbed the chainsaw crosses at its hips and set about shredding men to pieces. Within half an hour, almost every bandit was dead. The only people alive were Naruto, of course, the women, and the leader of these dead men. Naruto stepped out from his seat in the forest, having voided his stomach long ago when he first drew blood from these men. Now, his face was an impassive surface of stone as he approached the leader, who was shocked beyond belief that a child playing with dolls could have slaughtered his men. He fell on his ass and tried to scramble away from the 8-year-old, only to run into a tree. He eyed Naruto with complete and unbridled fear as he neared, a sphere of chakra forming in his hand. "Thank you for giving me the chance to use my puppets in real action. And thank you for volunteering for one of my more experimental jutsu. I haven't tried this on a person yet, so tell me what you think." Jishin. Tetsu Rasengan. Magnet release. Iron spiraling sphere. With a yell, Naruto thrust the steel-gray Rasengan into the man's stomach, the process of using magnet release beginning. With fine control only a puppet user could achieve, Naruto used magnet release to bring the iron in the man's blood to the surface and tear it out of him, bonding it with the Rasengan until it became a sphere-shaped storm of iron particles, driving it deeper into his stomach, carving a path through his flesh with the force of a grinding wrecking ball until he cleared clean through the man's stomach, bursting out his back in an explosion of blood. Naruto pulled his arm back, letting the man's corpse fall off his arm, as he used a minor Shinra Tensai to get the blood off his arm, sealed all his puppets away, and slowly walked his way back to Konoha, silent the entire time. He had done a service to Konoha, and no one would ever know. "Wait," a feminine voice called him from near the camp. Turning around to face the voice, he found the gang of women that were held captive by the bandits. "What is it?" he said tiredly. While he didn't do much in terms of the siege on the camp, it emotionally drained him, and he needed a nap. The frontmost woman, who seemed to be acting as a spokeswoman for the crowd, flinched slightly at his tone. It sounded tired, but so cold. "We want to know the name of the one who saved us," she said. Naruto was silent for a while before he nodded, seemingly agreeing with himself that giving his name wouldn't do any harm. Even if they spread the word of his skills and he somehow ended up in the bingo book of a lesser village, he didn't care. If he didn't become a figure of authority for the people to respect, he will become a shadow of fear for them to respect. He turned around, walking back to Konoha, but called over his shoulder. "My name is Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. I am 8 years old and I will become a puppet master," he said, looking back at them with his jubigan. After the incident of the bandit camp, Naruto's name spread amongst the minor villages, such as Kusa, Taki, and Aim, and soon it reached the main villages, and the shit hit the fan. The villages glared at him with an increased intensity, seeing him not just as the Kyuubi brat, seen as no one knew his secret, but also as the child who devastated a bandit camp, amongst others throughout the months until the Shinobi Academy began, with just his puppets, as well as showcasing multiple versions of the technique of the Yondaime, all of which included elements, something the Yondaime never accomplished, due to circumstances. So far within the 4 months from the first siege to the fall, Naruto had created a fire, scorch, steel, wood, and earth release Rasengans, all disturbingly devastating. Along with the numerous elemental Rasengans, Naruto had also created a bevy of new puppets, and due to an event he somewhat foresaw beforehand, he had a slew of human puppets now, giving the skulls of Damongo a purpose. Flashback. A day after Naruto had wiped out the bandit camp, Naruto awoke to his house being broken into by fireballs and palm thrusts of chakra almost liquefying his brain. He jumped off his bed and busted through his window, appearing in the middle of the road in his forest green boxers with orange swirls on them. Blushing slightly at having to fight almost naked, he unsealed a black cloak and threw it on, hiding his body from view, and prepared himself to fight. He looked around himself, finding he was surrounded by Uchihas and Hyugas. At least 5 of the former and 10 of the latter. He cursed them for waking him up. He was training in 3 Tales of Yukai with Jubi-chan. "Today is the day you die here, demon," and Uchiha yelled, stepping forward threateningly. Naruto sighed. "Couldn't you assholes pick a better time to do this? I was sleeping," he complained, only to be met with intense glares and some dujutsu activating. He sighed again, brandishing chakra strains. "I see we gotta do this the hard way," he said, unsealing his Biju puppets. Some of the Junin stepped back, seeing the demon-made dolls of his damnable brethren. The ringleader of the group snapped his fingers and a veritable legion of both clans appeared as backup, making Naruto second-guess himself, but he steeled his resolve under the Jubi's cheers inside his head. Jumping into action, he connected his knee with the chin of the nearest Uchiha faster than he could react, a puppet bull's head poofing into existence, impaling the man's head. During his training, Jubi had helped him create the second component of Predaking, Tantrum, the bull, and already incorporated him into his taijutsu. As Tantrum's head poofed out of existence, dislodging the Mont's gored head, Shukaku, Matabi, and Isobu were already in the middle of their own fights. Shukaku was swiping its massive arms around, both goring men on its claws and sand torrents trailing behind it in attacks combos, as it twirled around, slamming its tail into a couple of people, and thrusting its claws forward. Sand made copies of the Ichibi thrusting forward, slamming a pair of men into the building behind them. It opened its maw and slammed itself on the large stomach, launching a Renkuden at a small group of Uchihas and Hyugas, blasting them away. With precise chakra control, the Shukaku conjured a Rasengan of its own, thanks to Naruto, of course, and channeled its sand-release chakra into it, the sphere turning the same light brown as the sand, as particles spun around the orb. It launched forward faster than they expected, Naruto's voice echoing from a speaker on its throat. Suton. Rasengan Tsunarashi. Sand release. Spiraling sphere sandstorm. With a thrust, the orb impacted with the target's stomach, grinding into his abdomen as sand exploded from the orb, taking the form of a storm of Shukaku's hulking limbs wrapping around them in a large orb. As his form was soon cast in darkness, then it imploded on itself, crushing the man within into nothingness. Matabi was swiping at its opponents with its poison-laced claws, which somehow didn't evaporate under the flames somehow. Probably a special solution Naruto made just for the flaming cat puppet. Underneath the flames of its tails, said appendages had serrated blades, and the Nibi no Nekomata facsimile was filled to the brim with weapons and poisons, which it used to full potential, as well as the manipulative properties of the obsidian flames of its body, a la blaze release. Should it have missed its target, the black's flame speared out in a blade, impaling them in a vital spot, killing them instantly. With the cornering of its last opponent, Naruto decided to end him with a bang, and channeled a Rasengan to form in front of Matabi's jaw, much like the Biju would form a Bijudama, as blaze released chakra fused with it. Launching it forward, the Rasengan grinded into his stomach as the black flames struck. 100 flames shot out, turning into 100 blades of manipulated fire, as they impaled the man again and again, turning mid-air after stabbing him for another round. By the end, the man was impaled 10,000 times, and the Rasengan at the heart of the flaming blades exploded, engulfing the man in sweet, fiery death. This was the Enten, Seno ha no kan Saigyo. Blaze release. Flame control of 1,000 blades. Isobu seemed to be toying with its opponents, swiping at them with its large claws, huge tails, and the many spikes on chains all over its shell, as well as conjuring water bullets out of thin air. The training in both its Yukai and the Nidaim's techniques were truly paying off. Shooting off a jet of pressurized water, the sheer force acting as a large blade, slicing men apart. It also took advantage of its segmented shell and the joints Naruto installed and jumped into the air, snapping shut into a large spiked ball, and rolled forward, reminding the men of an attacking Akamichi just before they were run over and gored apart. As it flipped open and around, it charged a Rasengan with water chakra, shooting it forward with another jet of water. On contact, the contained water exploded outwards, turning into a group of water dragons that crashed into numerous enemies, crushing them on contact with anything bolted down as they continued against the bodies, their insane pressure splattering them against the walls or ground. This was the Suiten. Rasengan Suiryu Densetsu. Water release. Spiraling sphere water dragon fury. Naruto stood in the middle of the carnage, his face more tired than anything. Looking around, he found they were all dead, and his destructive techniques ruined a majority of the bodies. But at least 5 of each clan were intact enough for him to make into human puppets. Sealing the bodies and puppets away, he jumped back inside, fixed anything they broke, and collapsed on his bed, falling asleep before he even hit the pillow. Flashback. After that whole incident, Naruto indeed made human puppets of the Hyugas and Uchihas, sealing them in some skulls on Damongo, putting the names of each clan member after searching the bodies for some form of ID. With the rapid spike in his puppet collection came the problem of how to control more than 10 puppets at once. The problem became worse when his damn brain kept thinking of more puppets. Slamming his hands on his work table, he decided to start on the project that would aid him in controlling more than 10 puppets at once. Bubbling ideas be damned. He couldn't act on these ideas if he knew he couldn't even use them with other puppets. Grabbing a couple of puppet arms, but no other parts, he set about creating the mechanisms he envisioned. An hour later, he emerged with 6 extra limbs, though none were flesh. On his shoulders, just under his shoulder blades, and behind his ribs were puppets' arms, as well as his own 2 hands, all conjured chakra strings, connecting to several things and making them dance. To achieve this, Naruto had to install needles in the base of each limb that dug into his skin and directly connected to a tenketsu point inside his body, creating faux limbs that he could use to control more puppets. At the moment, he could control a maximum of 40. Thankfully, he didn't have that much, yet, so this solved the problem for now. However, he had a theory that could lead to him being able to create a chakra string from every tenketsu point in his body, leading him to be able to control 361 puppets at once. Last he checked, that was more than Sasori Tami's Hyaki no Soin. Thankfully, a combination of his chakra control exercises he never stopped doing, combined with his new Hyuga puppets, which he had to study the precise chakra control they achieved for techniques such as Kaden, which allowed them to flood chakra out of each point for a defensive tactic. If he could learn from that, he might achieve it. But for now, that was one less problem on his head. Next was the seemingly endless supply of puppet ideas flooding his head. He decided to begin on the seemingly simplest idea. Gilgamesh, the god of blades. This was going to take a lot of steel release manipulation. 2 days later, Naruto's progress with his current project was interrupted time and again by sleep, food, friends, and the academy. But only the latter for the first few days, as within a week, he decided to send a clone to take school for him while he worked on Gilgamesh. But even with that, it still took a whole 2 days to finish the puppet, as it was truly gargantuan and the forging of the many blades was time-consuming. But by the end of the second day, Gilgamesh was done. Towering over the 8-year-old was a beast of a puppet, 6 arms and a head and half the torso hidden under a red cloth. Large black horns sprouting from the sides of its head through the cloth. Hair tied up Bushido style, looking like a large flame floating behind its head. In its upper left hand, it held an almost heavenly katana, its silver blade almost glowing with an inner light. A black strip down the blade with thinned towards the tip, glowing runes down the black band, the pattern continuing on the handle below where it held the weapon, just under the simply guard, as the pommel of the blade was wrapped in brown leather. In its middle left hand was a huge almost demonic blade, a handle wrapped in red cloth. The guard was made of a scowling skull on a stylized ribcage with 5 points branching off and almost holding the large curved blade sprouting from it. The blade in its bottom left hand was odd, and seemed like it came from the technology formed from Naruto's Asura path. A large silver block made the guard, rivets around the cross paneling, as a half-hemisphere that looked like the inside of one of the pistols Naruto created, as the blade itself was almost like the pincer blade of Kenshi, but it had the angle at the tip of a normal sword, rivets and panel lines trailing up the massive weapon. In the upper right hand was another odd weapon, as the blade of it seemed to glow like it was made of ice or crystal, as the guard formed a sort of double-sided knuckle guard with 4 cylinders sprouting out of the bat wing like extensions. The weapon of the middle right arm was the most normal of them all, as it was a simple black katana with a guard of 4 lines extending in a square spiral, a chain hanging off the bottom of the pommel. The final weapon in the bottom right arm was a huge zanbatsu with silver clasps across the guard, a chain hanging off one of the loops on either side, as the weapon curved in on itself slightly as you traveled up the blade, then looped in and curved out to the tip that was almost a bell shape, 3 holes in said tip, as tribal symbols of what might be fish swimming upwards trailed up the black blade. At its waist was armor made of some sort of sturdy straw, with blue baggy shinobi pants and large get around its feet. Naruto smirked up at the hulking behemoth and started working on its supplementary puppet. Again, this was going to take a lot of steel release manipulation. 3 days later, this puppet took longer than Gilgamesh because of the copious amounts of metal Naruto used to form the armor and weapon. He wouldn't showcase this puppet until a major battle against multiple enemies, though, so he sealed it right after finishing it. Over the course of the process of Gilgamesh and the supplementary puppet, Naruto has managed to create 2 more parts of Predaking: Rampage and Headstrong, the tiger and rhinoceros. He was 1 puppet away from completing the monster that would be Predaking. He planned to save Razorclaw for graduation day at the academy, 4 years from now. With the armor puppet that would aid him in controlling more than 10, which he decided to name Asura, and the 2 main puppets' ideas out of his head, Naruto could think more clearly, until another idea popped into his mind. Sighing, he decided to send another Cage Bunshin to go to school for him while he stayed home and worked on his puppets. This was the life of a puppeteer, especially someone who dreamed to become a puppet master. Damn you Sasori and your challenge in that journal. 1 month later, nothing important happened between the creation of Gilgamesh and now, just a few attempted break-ins by stupid civilians, but they only became more puppets for his collection. Thinking of what to do with these puppets, he decided to make a security system using the extra puppets, since they would serve no purpose as useful human puppets. With their minimum chakra networks and nothing to specialize each puppet in, he decided to make them into guards for his compound. Seeing as everyone in the apartment complex moved out to get away from the demon brat, so he had the whole 27 rooms to himself on the 3 floors. Setting up at least 3 seals on each floor, he made copies of Asura's arms to pop up and connect their chakra strings to the puppets that would then guard the perimeter of the property, officially making the whole complex his home and his alone. By the end of his work, he had 45 puppet guards scanning the perimeter and had them seal any trespassers that were killed into scrolls with whatever little amount of chakra they had. With that done, he decided to work on a chimera puppet, but not just any chimera. It would of course start with the 3 main components, goat, lion, and snake, but he decided on an idea where he could combine other animal puppets to make it more of a beast. Imagine the strength and claws of a tiger, the soaring wings of an eagle, the brutish power of a gorilla, and that's not even mentioning what he would have created since they would be puppets. 2 hours later and he had finished his basic chimera puppet, a demonic goat face with 2 large horns sweeping back, with 2 smaller horns under them. Amongst a mane as the lion face was under its neck, a basic lion body, but with slightly longer limbs so it could stand upright, and a snake for a tail, every scale on its body and face a piece of wood with a metal tip, poison dripping from its fangs. Naruto then set about creating auxiliary puppets that would bond with it, the main chimera and each add-on puppet having 2 special seals that would allow them to combine. The first was in the base of the limbs that would add strengths to the whole monster that would absorb the rest of the body and chakra. The second was a special seal that utilized wood chakra that would also make combining easier, manipulating the wood of the puppets to conform to the extra limbs. As he completed Tora and Garira, his mind wandered to the talk he had with Oji-san about the rumors spreading around of Naruto destroying all those bandit camps. That was the day he told the old man everything. Flashback. Hey, Oji-san, you wanted to see me? Naruto asked as he barged into Sarutobi's office, ignoring his bitch of a secretary. Ah, Naruto-kun, yes, I wish to speak with you. I've heard some rumors about a blonde child with peculiar eyes eradicating bandit camps with puppets. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Hiruzen asked after dismissing his Anbu and sealing the room with a privacy technique, staring at Naruto intently. Naruto stiffened and started sweating. That wasn't the stare of the loving old man he saw as a grandfather. That was the stare of the Kami no shinobi asking one of his subordinates a question. While Naruto wasn't a shinobi yet, at least in the eyes of the law, he was indeed one of many people who answered to the Sandame. After Jubi's resigning words to tell Sarutobi everything, he sighed and explained the whole situation. The Jubi, the Jubigan, the Biju puppets, the bandit camps, everything, including the sub-elements manipulations and giving Tenten steel and magnet release. He didn't mention that Anko knew his secret, though, he didn't want to get her in trouble with the old man. For 5 solid minutes, Hiruzen stared down Naruto, digesting all this information as it ran through his head. After the 5 minutes of silence, Naruto progressively growing more nervous under his scrutinizing stare, Sarutobi finally sighed and rubbed his temples. muttering something along the lines of, "I'm too old for this shit." Well, shit, Naruto-kun, that is a lot to take in. Everything we knew about you was a lie. You don't have the Kyuubi, you were much stronger in the Kugetsu no Jutsu than I first thought, and the people of this village are still idiots. But please tell me you're not just going around killing civilians for more human puppets? He pleaded of Naruto. He sighed in relief when the blonde shook his head negatively. He leaned forward, crossing his hands together on his desk and sighed. Well, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, congratulations on an A-rank event of eradicating the surrounding bandit camps in Hai no Kuni. Your pay will be installed in your bank account, which I'll handle myself, so you may go. He said tiredly, not even knowing how to respond to every little detail Naruto brought to his attention. Naruto bowed stiffly, said a quick, "Thank you," and left the tower, leaving Hiruzen alone with his thoughts. The next 4 years were going to be quite strenuous and stressful for all of Konoha.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.